Chapter 66. Xinyao, you can't do this. If Mom and Dad find out, they'll be angry. I stood up and shouted at Xinyao. Duanmuke pulled my arm and pulled me into his embrace. Don't talk. Xinyao shook her head at me and pointed at a corner of the bar. I looked over and saw Yu Xian sitting there. Xinyao looked at Yu Xian and said, Yu Xian, come up here. Everyone looked at Yu Xian. Yu Xian furrowed her brows and turned to look at Duanmu Quebec. When she saw that Duanmuke was hugging me, her expression became even more serious. She turned around and walked towards the stage. She stood on the stage and looked at Xinyao. Xinyao, I won't accept your challenge. Xinyao laughed and waved her hand. She called the MC to her side and said, Come MC, tell her the rules of killer. The MC stood in the middle of the stage and looked at Yu Xian. Miss Yu, it seems that you still don't understand killer. Once a challenger is named, they have no right to refuse. Even if you really want to refuse, we will force it down your throat. So Miss Yu, you should accept our Duanmuke's challenge. A group of people surrounded the stage. Everyone shouted in unison, Accept! 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 Yu Xian looked at Duanmuke and then looked at Xinyao. She laughed and said, Okay, Duanmu Xinyao, I accept your challenge. The audience cheered. The stage was about to start the drinking competition. Duanmuke hugged me from behind. The two of us looked at the stage. Duanmuke whispered into my ear, Waifu, do you remember the drinking competition we had? I nodded and said, How could I not remember? I don't like drinking. But in order to win against you, I desperately poured alcohol into my mouth. Now that I think about it, I was so childish back then. But it was also at that time that I gradually became attracted to you. Duanmuke kissed my cheek. Glib tongue. Oh right. Why did you stop me from stopping Xinyao from drinking? I turned around and looked at Duanmu Quebec. Duanmuke pulled me into his arms and said, My sister is good at everything, but she's too stubborn. Besides, she can drink so much. How could she be so easily drunk by Yu Xian? Yu Xian did so many wrong things. This time, this is her punishment. That's not good. I don't want Xinyao to get hurt. I hugged Duanmu Quebec. My heart felt incomparably at ease. While we were talking, the drinking competition officially began. Xinyao was worthy of being called someone who could drink 1,000 cups without getting drunk. In a short period of time, she had already far surpassed Yu Xian's progress. Yu Xian drank with great difficulty. I knew how powerful killer was. Every time she drank a cup, it felt like a knife was cutting her throat. It was difficult to swallow. After half of the drinking, Yu Xian was already lying on the table, forcing herself to raise the cup to her mouth. Xinyao, on the other hand, had already drunk more than half of her cup. She stood there and glared fiercely at Yu Xian. In the end, the difference in strength was too great. Xinyao easily won the drinking competition. When Xinyao finished the last cup, she directly threw the cup to the floor. Then she walked in front of Yu Xian and grabbed Yu Xian's collar. She stared at her and said, Yu Xian, you bitch. You seduced my brother, and even seduced Han Hao. How can you be so shameless? Who do you think you are? Yu Xian shook off Xinyao's hand. She suddenly lost her balance and fell to the floor. She forced herself to support herself and tried to move off the stage. You want to leave? It's not that easy. You think I'll let you go so easily after you poured wine on my face? Xinyao pulled Yu Xian's feet and dragged her back to the center of the stage. Then she straddled Yu Xian's body. She reached out and slapped Yu Xian's face twice. At this time, Han Hao appeared out of nowhere. He rushed onto the stage, grabbed Xinyao, and held her tightly in his arms. He shouted at her, Xinyao, that's enough. Don't you think what you did was wrong? Xinyao stopped struggling and turned around to look at Han Hao. Han Hao, you care about her that much? What's so good about her that makes you protect her so much? Han Hao sighed and said to Xinyao, It's not like that. Xinyao, listen to me. Enough. I don't want to hear it. Xinyao's tears flowed down. She looked at Han Hao and said, Fine. If you want to protect her, then do as you please. Xinyao shook off Han Hao's hand and wiped away her tears. Xinyao, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean it that way. Han Hao was afraid she would misunderstand, so he kept explaining. Han Hao, if you like her, fine. I have no right to care who you like. I, Duanmu Xiniao, swear that I won't be reluctant to part with my feelings for you. From now on, you are you, and I am me. I, Duanmu Xiniao, will never confess my feelings to you again. Xiniao reached out and threw all the wine glasses on the stage to the ground. She glared fiercely at Yu Xian, and then at Han Hao. I wish you both happiness. Then she walked off the stage without looking back. Duanmu Ke and I saw that the situation wasn't good, so we walked in the direction Xiniao left. Xiniao walked out of the bar, and the two of us followed closely behind her. We didn't say anything. Xiniao walked to a corner on the side of the road and suddenly stopped. Then she squatted down and burst into tears. I quickly ran to Xiniao's side. When Xiniao saw me, she threw herself into my arms and cried her heart out. I hugged her, and she cried very hard. She hugged me tightly and said, "Sister-in-law, sister-in-law." I'm heartbroken. I didn't know how to comfort her, so I could only hug her tightly. Duanmu Ke also stood next to us. He stroked Xiniao's hair and said to Xiniao, "Girl, don't cry. Seeing you like this, big brother's heart hurts." Xiniao cried even harder. At this moment, Han Hao suddenly appeared behind us. He glanced at Xiniao, then said to Duanmu Ke, "Duanmu, can you let me talk to Xiniao?" Duanmu Ke suddenly walked in front of Han Hao and punched him. Han Hao's mouth bled a little. Han Hao looked at Duanmu Ke and lowered his head. He didn't say anything. Duanmu Ke grabbed Han Hao's collar and glared at him. "Han Hao, I consider you my best brother. Why did you hurt my little sister?" "I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose." Han Hao shook his head and looked at Duanmu Quebec. Duanmu Ke reached out and punched Han Hao again. Han Hao lost his balance and leaned against the wall. At this moment, Xiniao suddenly rushed in front of Han Hao and stood in front of him. She looked at Duanmu Ke and said, "Big brother, don't hit him." Duanmu Ke helplessly shook his head and looked at Xiniao. "Girl, I really don't know what to do with you." He reached out and wiped Xiniao's tears. "Don't cry. I won't hit him, okay?" he said dotingly. Chapter 67. Xian Yao nodded to Duanmu Ke, then turned to Han Hao. She handed him a tissue and said, "What do you want to say? Speak." Han Hao looked at her and sighed. "Xian Yao, I'm sorry. I want to explain things clearly to you." "There's nothing to explain. Since you've already said it clearly, there's no need to say it again." Xian Yao wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and looked at Han Hao. Han Hao suddenly said to Xian Yao, "Xian Yao, I really don't have anything to do with you, Xian. I just don't want you to do something that's beneath your status, in front of so many people. Don't you know that you're the eldest daughter of the Duanmu family? So what if I'm the eldest daughter? I can't get the person I love. So what if I lose my status? Tell me." Xian Yao's tears fell again. Han Hao looked at Xian Yao and held her shoulder. "Xian Yao, can you give me some time? There's someone in my heart that I can never forget. Can you give me some time to slowly let go, and let me slowly accept your feelings for me?" Xian Yao looked at him in surprise. "Han Hao, what did you say? Are you willing to accept me?" Han Hao nodded. "How could I not know your feelings for me? But I've always loved someone else in my heart. I can't accept you with a heart that loves someone else. This is unfair to everyone. Can you promise me? Give me some time." Xian Yao's tears fell again, and she threw herself into Han Hao's embrace. Looking at them hugging each other, I had an indescribable feeling in my heart. At this time, Duanmu Ke patted my shoulder, indicating that I shouldn't disturb them. I nodded. Duanmu Ke held my hand as we walked on the road. He stayed by my side and didn't say a word. I looked at his side profile quietly. Just as I was lost in my thoughts, Duanmu Ke suddenly turned his head. His eyes were filled with tenderness. He reached out and pulled me into his arms. He buried his head on my shoulder and didn't say a word. I hugged Duanmu Ke and asked, "What's wrong? Hugging me all of a sudden?" Duanmu Ke didn't let go of me. "I'm suddenly scared. I'm scared that you'll leave me." I smiled and hugged him tightly. "Silly, what are you thinking? How could I leave you?" Duanmu Ke let go of me and looked at me. "The person Han Hao loves is you, isn't it?" My heart suddenly trembled and my eyes drifted. I didn't dare to look at him. "What are you talking about? How could that be?" Dwanmuke cupped my face. But I can see that the person Han Hao loves is you, and you know how he feels about you. I sighed and said to Dwanmuke, I know how he feels about me. Right now, I only have you in my heart. I've made it clear to him, and he understands our relationship. But my heart doesn't feel good at all. One is my closest brother, and the other is the woman I love the most. This kind of entanglement makes me feel physically and mentally exhausted. You're thinking too much. I won't like Han Hao. Even if he likes me, I won't like him. I looked at Dwanmuke and said firmly, Can you guarantee that you've never had any feelings for him? Dwanmuke looked into my eyes. I didn't know how to answer his question. He continued, You don't know how to answer? I'm not stupid. I can see that you have feelings for him. Then what do you mean by saying all this? I've already told you that it's impossible between him and me. What else do you want me to do? I was already a bit agitated. I shook off Dwanmuke's hand and asked him. Dwanmuke suddenly pulled me into his embrace, stroked my head and said, You are mine. I won't allow anyone to take you away from me. You're already starting to distrust me. Little K, I've already given my body and heart to you. But I didn't think that you would still be so worried about me. Forget it, I want to be alone for a while. You can go home by yourself. I pushed Dwanmuke away, ignored him, and turned to walk away. Xiaoli, don't go. Dwanmuke caught up with me and grabbed my hand, not letting me go. I turned and looked at him. Shaking off his hand, I said, Let's be quiet and think about what's going on between us, and what we can do to fix it. I looked at him, then turned and walked away. Dwanmuke didn't chase after me. Maybe he needed to calm down and think about it. I calmed down and walked casually on the road. I didn't know where my destination was. There were people walking back and forth on the road. They were all talking and laughing. A young couple walked past me. I heard the girl say to the boy, Honey, there's a new movie coming out tomorrow. Let's go and watch it together. The boy had a doting expression on his face. He stroked the girl's hair and smiled. Okay, girl. Whatever you want. I knew you were the best. Then let's go eat something good. I know a new restaurant that opened. It's really good. The girl leaned on the boy's shoulder, her face full of happiness. Okay, as long as you're happy. The boy put his arm around the girl's shoulder and walked away. Seeing their happy faces, I realized that I had never had a proper date with Dwanmu Quebec. I had never seen a movie with him. It felt like there were a lot of things I hadn't done with him. I suddenly felt very sorry for him. I thought about how I had lost my temper with him, and how he had only said those things because he cared about me. I felt very uncomfortable. Maybe I had done something wrong. I thought about it, and decided to take the initiative to admit my mistake. I picked up my phone and dialed Dwanmuke's number, but he didn't answer. I called him 2 more times, but he still didn't answer. Maybe he went home. I called a taxi and drove to Dwanmuke's house. When I arrived at Dwanmuke's house, I walked through the front door. There was no one in the front yard. It was very late. I walked into the living room. Dwanmu Tachio and Xiaofingya weren't in the living room either. Only the housekeeper was cleaning the living room. When she saw me, she warmly greeted me. Young madam, you're back. Yeah, I'm back. Is Xiao K back? I asked. Young Master K has been back for a while. He should be upstairs in his bedroom. Okay, thank you. I got it. I walked upstairs. I decided that if I saw Dwanmuke, I would hug him and apologize to him. When I reached the bedroom door, I straightened my clothes and took out the mirror I always carried with me. If I wasn't happy, Dwanmuke would be too. I gently pushed the door open and said loudly, Hubby, I'm back. Chapter 68. The moment I opened the door, I saw a scene that I would never forget. I stood at the door dumbfounded, looking at the scene in front of me. I felt as if the world had collapsed. Dwanmuke was indeed in the bedroom. He was lying quietly on the bed, his upper body naked. There were bottles of alcohol everywhere on the floor. It seemed he had been drinking. And in Dwanmuke's arms was another person. That person was none other than Yu Xian. Yu Xian was also lying in Dwanmuke's arms with her arms exposed. I stood at the door and didn't say anything. Looking at the scene in front of me, I didn't know what to do. I took a step back and wanted to leave the room, but I accidentally bumped into a bottle on the floor. The sound of the bottle falling woke Duanmuke up. Duanmuke rubbed his eyes. His sleepy eyes saw me standing at the door. He hurriedly got off the bed and rushed to my side. He hugged me and said, "Wifey, you're back." "Wifey, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have wronged you. I'm sorry. Don't be mad at me, okay?" I didn't say anything. I just stood there and stared at Yuxian, who was still lying on the bed. Duanmuke saw that I didn't respond. He looked at me and said, "Wifey, what's wrong? Are you still mad at me? Don't be mad." Tears fell from my eyes. Then, I moved his hand away from me. I didn't say anything and turned to leave. Duanmuke saw that I was about to leave. He hugged me tightly from behind and said, "Wifey, I know I was wrong. Don't ignore me, okay? I'm sorry. I know I was wrong." At this time, Xingyao came back with Han Hao. Xingyao smiled and ran towards me. Sister-in-law were back. Han Hao and I made up sister-in-law. Seeing Xingyao, my tears couldn't stop flowing. I lay in her arms and cried even harder. Xingyao hugged me and said, "Sister-in-law, what's wrong? Don't cry." She saw Duanmuke and shouted, "Aya, brother, why aren't you dressed?" Duanmuke looked down at himself and said shyly, "I'll go put it on now." Duanmuke turned around and saw Yuxian lying on the bed awake. He was shocked and stepped back a few steps. He pointed at Yuxian and said, Why are you in my bed?" Yuxian sat up on the bed and covered her chest with the blanket. She calmly flipped her hair and looked at us without saying a word. Xingyao moved closer to Duanmuke and saw the naked Yuxian. She was stunned. "Yuxian," she shouted. "You slut, get the hell out here." After saying that, he reached out to beat Yuxian. Han Hao hugged Xingyao from behind and said, "Girl, don't get too excited. You still don't understand the situation. It won't be too late to make a decision after you figure it out." With a cold laugh, I looked at Duanmuke and said, "What else is there to be unclear about? Isn't it obvious? My man slept with another woman in our bridal chamber. Hee hee." My tears flowed down again. Duanmuke pressed my shoulder and said, "It's not like that. Wife, don't think too much." After we finished arguing, I was very upset. So I went home to drink. Later, I didn't have enough wine, so I asked the nanny to bring me a few bottles. After that, I don't remember anything. I looked at Duanmuke and said, "Do you think I still believe you?" I shook off Duanmuke's hand and walked downstairs. At this moment, I felt as if the whole world had turned black. I sat on the sofa in the living room numb. I couldn't feel anything at all. After a while, Xingyao ran downstairs and sat next to me. She wanted to say something, but she was hesitant and didn't know what to say. I looked at her and said, "I'm fine. I'm fine." Xingyao couldn't hold it in any longer. She said to me, "Sister-in-law, don't hold it in anymore. I know you feel wronged. Don't hold it in. If you want to cry, just cry." Xingyao hugged me, and I lay in her embrace, tears flowing uncontrollably. Xingyao stroked my hair and sighed. "I didn't think she would use such a method. If your brother didn't give her a chance, she wouldn't have climbed into his bed so easily. Sister-in-law, don't think about it. My heart aches for you. That bad brother of mine is too bad." Xingyao hugged me tightly, giving me a little bit of warmth. After a while, Han Hao brought Yuxian downstairs. Duanmuke followed behind. Yuxian sat across from me. Duanmuke wanted to sit next to me, but I refused. Helpless, he could only sit next to Yuxian. We sat like that in silence, no one saying a word. After a while, I raised my head and looked at Duanmuke. He had his head lowered and didn't look at me. Yuxian looked at me calmly, as if she was showing off to me that she had obtained Duanmuke. I calmed down and said, "Xingyao, help me pack my luggage, and then take me home." Xingyao looked puzzled. "Go home?" she asked. "Isn't this your home?" "My own home." I looked at Duanmuke. He raised his head and looked at me. He didn't say anything. "Sister-in-law, you should think about it carefully. Don't make a decision so easily." Xingyao hugged my arm. I understood that she was giving us some leeway. Han Hao looked at Xingyao. "Listen to her. We'll take her home later." Duanmuke suddenly stood up. He looked at me and said, "This is a misunderstanding. We can't confirm what happened. Can't you give me a chance to explain?" I looked at him and said calmly, "What's there to explain? Two people hugging each other naked. Would you believe me if I said nothing happened?" Dwanmuke blushed. He turned to Uxian and said, "Uxian, tell them that nothing happened between us." Uxian looked at Dwanmuke and then at me. "It's okay. I don't need him to take responsibility." "What? Obviously nothing happened. Why would you say that?" Dwanmuke tightly gripped Uxian's shoulder. "Dwanmugij, I was the one who delivered the wine for you. As soon as I put the wine down, you suddenly hugged me and said how much you loved me. Then you kissed me and then..." Uxian lowered her head. I sneered. I looked up and didn't say anything else. I tried not to let my tears fall. Xinyao couldn't control her emotions. She stood up and pointed at Uxian. "You bitch. I didn't expect you to hook up with a man in bed. Do you really think you're a good person?" I pulled Xinyao's arm and said, "Forget it. It's already like this. What else is there to say?" Dwanmuke turned to look at me. "What about you? When you hugged Han Hao, did you consider my feelings? What am I?" Chapter 69. Exanyao looked at Dwanmuke with wide eyes and said, "Bro? What did you say?" Suddenly, Han Hao stood in front of me. He looked at Dwanmuke and said, "Xiaoke, why did you say that? Don't you know you'll hurt her heart? You care about her that much? You said nothing happened between the two of you? Who would believe that?" Dwanmuke stared at Han Hao and roared. Exanyao pulled Han Hao and asked, "Brother Han Hao, what's going on?" Han Hao looked at Exanyao, then looked at Dwanmuke and said, "In front of Exanyao, I'm not afraid to say it. You're right, I do like Xiaoli. From the first time I saw her, I fell in love with her. But what about Xiaoli? In order to be with you, she rejected me more than once. She's such a good woman. Why do you want to hurt her? Why do you want to wrong her?" Exanyao lowered her head, tears streaming down her face. Dwanmuke sneered and said, "Han Hao, you'd better see clearly that the person you love is my woman." Han Hao was about to open his mouth, but Exanyao pulled him back. Exanyao stood up and looked at Dwanmuke. "Brother, I know. I guess that Han Hao likes sister-in-law. The way Han Hao looks at her is completely different from the way he looks at me. When I found out about this, my heart was very uncomfortable. I like sister-in-law, I like Han Hao, and I also like brother." Dwanmuke looked at Exanyao and roared, "Don't tell me you're also questioning me? Brother, that's not what I meant." Exanyao was scared and hid behind Han Hao. I looked at Dwanmuke and said, "Let's just leave it at that. The two of us need to think about what to do in the future." I turned to Exanyao and said, "Exanyao, let's go." I turned to walk towards the door. Suddenly, Dwanmuke rushed forward and grabbed my hand. He pulled me into his arms and carried me up. I clung onto him tightly and struggled as I said, "What are you doing? Let go of me." Dwanmuke carried me upstairs. When he passed by Han Hao and Exanyao, he glanced at them and said, "No matter what you hear, don't go upstairs." Then Dwanmuke carried me upstairs. "Dwanmuke, let go of me." I was still struggling. I looked at Exanyao, and Exanyao shook her head at me, indicating that I shouldn't struggle. Indeed, I couldn't struggle. Dwanmuke was holding me tightly. How could I break free? Dwanmuke carried me back to the bedroom. After we entered the room, Dwanmuke closed the door and threw me onto the bed. I struggled to sit up. I looked at him and roared, "Dwanmuke, what the hell do you want?" Dwanmuke stood by the bed and pushed me down. He looked at me as he took off his clothes. I looked at him in fear. Clutching my chest, I asked, "Dwanmuke, calm down. What do you want?" After taking off his clothes, Dwanmuke climbed onto the bed and lay on top of me. I couldn't move. I pushed his shoulders and roared, "Dwanmuke, let go of me. Don't touch me." Dwanmuke was on top of me, tearing off my clothes piece by piece. He stared at me and said, "Don't touch you? Do you want to wait for someone to touch you?" My upper body was completely exposed in front of him. Hearing him say that, I was very angry. I couldn't control myself and slapped him. After I slapped him, I was shocked. Dwanmuke suddenly stopped. He looked at me. I didn't dare to look at him, and turned my face to the side. He put his hand under my skirt. I quickly grabbed his hand to stop him from moving. Duan Muke grabbed my hand and pressed me under his body. He looked into my eyes and said, "You are mine." Duan Muke kissed me deeply on the lips. He suddenly became gentle and touched me gently from my face to my upper body. Then he put his hand under my skirt again. This time I didn't struggle. He gently took off all the coverings on my body. I was completely naked in front of him. He spread my legs and tangled with me tenderly. After a while, I lay on the bed with my back facing Duanmu Quebec. He leaned against the headboard and didn't say anything. I didn't want to know what he was thinking, and I didn't want to talk to him. After lying down for a while, I struggled to sit up, but Duan Muke pressed me down on the bed. "Lie down," he roared. I turned around and looked at Duanmu Quebec. "What do you want?" Duan Muke took advantage of the situation and pulled me into his arms. "Nothing. There's nothing that can't be solved with sex." I looked at Duan Muke with a face full of black lines. I was actually speechless with his logic. However, as I listened to Duan Muke's heartbeat, my mood gradually calmed down. However, when I thought of the image of him and Yusin lying together, my heart still felt very uncomfortable. I used all my strength to pinch his back. "Ouch! It hurts!" Duan Muke grimaced as he cried out. I glared at him and said, "No matter how painful it is, it's not as painful as mine." I pinched his back hard again. "I was wrong. I was wrong. Don't pinch me," Duan Muke said with a helpless face. I struggled to get up. Looking at the clothes that had been torn by Duan Muke, I shook my head helplessly. I opened the wardrobe and took out a set of clothes to change into. Duan Muke lay on the bed and looked at me. "Where are you going?" I turned my head and looked at him. "You have a big heart, but I don't. I want to talk to you, Xian." "What do you two have to talk about?" "Don't talk." Duan Muke suddenly jumped off the bed and hugged me tightly from behind. "Are you that afraid that I will confront her?" I began to suspect that something had really happened between Duan Muke and Yu Xian. Otherwise, why would he be so against me going to Yu Xian? Duan Muke didn't let go of me. He said to me, "Don't go to her, okay? I don't want you to go to her." "But why? Why don't you let me go to her?" "There has to be a reason." "There's no reason. I just don't want you to go." Duan Muke's tone clearly became stiff. I shook off Duan Muke's hand and looked at him. "If you didn't have something to do, you wouldn't be so against me going to her." Duan Muke put his hands on his waist and said angrily, "Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. I can't control you." I glared at him, opened the door and walked out of the room. I stood on the stairs and saw that Xinyao and Han Hao were no longer in the living room. Yu Xian was still sitting in the living room, pouring red wine into a glass. I stood on the stairs and called out to her, "Yu Xian." She looked up at me and said, "Come down and sit." Chapter 70. I walked in front of Yu Xian and sat on the sofa across from her. She picked up a wine glass and poured me some wine. She looked at me and said, "Drink a bit." I didn't refuse and took the wine glass she handed me. Yu Xian sat upright on the sofa, raised the glass, and drank it in one gulp. After drinking, she looked at me and said, "What do you want to ask? Ask away." "I don't have anything to ask you. Aren't the facts in front of you?" I held the wine glass and looked at Yu Xian. Yu Xian smiled and said, "It seems like you're quite sensible. It's good that you understand." How is it? How's Xiaokei's martial arts?" I raised my eyebrows and looked at Yu Xian. Yu Xian was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "Very good. Not bad." "That's strange. How did you make a drunk person have sex with you? What's so hard about that?" "He mistook me for you, so it happened naturally." Yu Xian arrogantly raised her head and looked at me. I looked at her and said, "So you admit that you seduced Xiaokei?" Yu Xian was stunned and said, "You're wrong. It was Duanmu Gij who took the initiative to have sex with me. How could I seduce him?" I put down the wine glass and looked at Yu Xian. "I suddenly feel that you're very pitiful. The person Xiaokei loves is me, so he's not satisfied with me. But you? You're doing everything you can to climb into his bed." Yu Xian looked at me and said, "So what? I'm satisfied as long as I can sleep with him. What do you plan to do in the future?" "Me? What can I do? I'll just pretend that nothing happened." Aren't you still his wife? Yu Xian looked at me and said with a smile. It was obvious that she was trying to force me to leave Duanmu, Quebec. I stood up and looked at Yu Xian. This is your ultimate goal, isn't it? You want to drive me away and become his woman, right? That's right. I'm already close to success. I won't give you another chance to turn things around. I pity you, Cold Glaze. In the end, you're still no match for me. Yu Xian's smile was especially brilliant. Time will tell. I turned and went upstairs. At that moment, Xinyao poked her head out of the room. When she saw me coming up the stairs, she looked at me and said, sister-in-law, come quickly. Sister-in-law, come quickly. I saw Xinyao call me, so I walked over to her. Xinyao grabbed my arm and pulled me into her bedroom. When I entered the room, I saw that Han Hao was also there. After Xinyao pulled me in, she held my arm and said, Sister-in-law, did brother quarrel with you just now? I heard a lot of noise in your room. I blushed. I patted her head and said, Little girl, don't ask questions. Xinyao winked mischievously. She looked at me with a smile and said, Okay, let's stop. Sister-in-law, I saw you go downstairs and talk with Yu Xian. What did you talk about? I sighed and said, We didn't talk about anything. She didn't say whether she and Duanmu Ke had a relationship or not. She only told me that her ultimate goal was to drive me away and become his woman. She's really shameless. Xinyao became unhappy again. I looked at her and then at Han Hao and said, Oh right. Xinyao, I have to apologize to you. I'm sorry. I know that the person Han Hao likes is me. Actually, when I found out that you had feelings for Han Hao, I felt very uncomfortable. I'm sorry, Xinyao. Xinyao suddenly hugged me and said, Sister-in-law, Han Hao told me all of this when we talked alone the other day. Although I don't feel good about it, I really envy sister-in-law because sister-in-law can obtain Han Hao's heart. Of course, I also like sister-in-law because I know what kind of person sister-in-law is. Sister-in-law wouldn't do anything to hurt me, right? I tightly hugged Xinyao and said, Silly girl, I've wronged you. I'm sorry. Sister-in-law will be good to you. I let go of Xinyao and turned to look at Han Hao. I said, Han Hao, I'll leave Xinyao to you in the future. Xinyao's personality is still like a little girl, so I'll leave it to you. I don't want Xinyao to be wronged. Han Hao nodded and said, Okay, I promise you. I'll take good care of her. All right, sister-in-law, what do we plan to do next? How are we going to deal with Yu Xian? Xinyao looked at me and asked. I sighed and said, I don't know, but I feel like Duanmu Ke's temper is getting worse and worse. Although it's possible that Yu Xian seduced Duanmu Ke, it's also possible that nothing happened between the two of them. However, I don't suspect that it was Duanmu Ke who initiated it. Xinyao shook her head and said, Sister-in-law, don't worry about this. My brother is definitely not like this. You have to believe me. I can guarantee you this. I really don't know about this, but Duanmu Ke has been acting a bit strange recently. I don't know why he became like this. I just said a few words to him, and his temper flared up. Then we quarreled. I sighed. What? You two just quarreled? Xinyao looked at me and rubbed my head. I shook my head and said, It's nothing, it's just a few words. It's all in the past. Don't wrong yourself. If you can't handle it, just call me. I'll beat him up. Xinyao looked at me and said. I smiled and said, Silly girl, you don't have to worry about Yu Xian. We'll play it by ear. As for your brother, if you have time, you have to sound him out and see what he's thinking. I'm afraid his feelings for me have already faded. At this moment the door was pushed open. Duanmu Ke stood at the door and looked at us. Faded? Very, very faded. I looked at Duanmu Ke in surprise and said, Why are you here? You were eavesdropping on our conversation. You're the stupid one, talking so loudly. Duanmu Ke walked over to me and knocked my head. Then he walked over to Han Hao and looked at Han Hao. Sorry bro, I misunderstood you. Han Hao was stunned. Then he looked at Duanmu Ke and said, You're too polite. We don't need to be so formal. We're all brothers. Wow, bro actually took the initiative to admit his mistake. That's not like you. Xinyao looked at Duanmu Ke with an evil smile and teased him. Duanmu Ke's face suddenly became very red. He didn't dare to look at us directly. He looked at the ceiling and said, Did I? Did I? Aya, let's not talk about this. When I came out, I didn't see you Xian. She probably went back to her room. Why are you here? I rolled my eyes at Duanmu Quebec. Duanmu K suddenly pulled me into his embrace and softly whispered into my ear. My wife is missing. I'm here to look for my wife. I want to admit my mistake to my wife, admit that I was wrong. After saying that, he kissed me on the cheek. Chapter 71. I pushed Duanmu K away and glared at him. Who wants to forgive you? Go keep acting like a young master. Duanmu K stood there looking at me innocently. I don't have a young master's temper. My temper is so good. You're bullying me. I'm going to complain to Father Lung. I fiercely stepped on Duanmu K's foot and pulled him towards the door. Hurry up and leave with me. Don't disturb the two of them. Hearing my words, Duanmu K turned around and looked at Han Hao and Xin Yao. Han Hao, treat my little sister better. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you. I'm going to break up with you. I forcefully pulled Duanmu K and threw him out of the door. Then I turned around and said to Han Hao and Xin Yao, You two ignore him. I'll take care of him. You two have fun. Bye. I casually closed the door to Xin Yao's bedroom. I pulled Duanmu K back into the bedroom. After he entered the room, he lay on the bed and looked at the ceiling, as if he was thinking about something. I didn't pay attention to him. I changed into my pajamas and lay down. I didn't say anything with my back to him. Thinking about the day's events, my heart didn't feel very comfortable. As I gradually entered the dreamland, I suddenly felt someone hug me from behind. I quickly opened my eyes and turned my head. Duanmu K had an expression of enjoyment on his face. His eyes were closed as he hugged me. His two hands were constantly touching me. I hit his hand in disgust. Duanmu K hugged me even tighter. His mouth was close to my ear as he whispered, Hugging you is the most comfortable feeling. No matter how I heard it, I felt that this sentence was strange. I struggled with all my strength and pinched his arm. You still touched Xian, didn't you? Duanmu K hugged me tightly and said, I'm just teasing you. How could I have touched her? Don't think too much. Then why did you say that? I struggled to push him away. Unexpectedly, I used too much strength and Duanmu K fell off the bed. I didn't expect to be able to push him off the bed. I quickly got off the bed and ran to him to help him up. Why are you pushing me? Don't touch me. Duanmu K was a little annoyed. He forcefully shook off my arm that I had extended to support him. He lost his balance and I took 2 steps back. I didn't mean to. I didn't think I could push you off the bed. I didn't dare go forward. I just stood there looking at him. Duanmu K stood up and straightened his clothes. He looked at me with a serious face. I told you. I was just teasing you. You still don't believe me? I can't argue with you. I can't coax you. I can't make you happy. What do you want? Why do you keep asking me what I want? What's wrong with me? You didn't do it? I was stunned by Duanmu K's series of questions. For a moment, I didn't know how to answer. I just stood there and looked at him blankly. I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to. Duanmu K looked at me and said impatiently, Forget it. He turned around and opened the wardrobe. He found a jacket and walked to the door. I looked at him and asked, Where are you going? It's so late. Don't worry about it. I'm going out alone. You go to sleep. Duanmu K opened the door and walked out of the room. The moment he walked out of the room, my tears flowed down. Did I really do something wrong? But I really cared about him. I believed that nothing would happen between Duanmu K and Xian. Why couldn't I forgive him? I sat on the floor and cried on the bed. That night, I washed my face with tears. I couldn't sleep at all. I thought about everything that had happened between Duanmu K and me. I was sure that I really loved him, and I didn't want to lose him. But in the past 2 days, we quarreled more and more. No matter what, it was my fault. I decided that as soon as the sun rose, I would go find him and apologize to him face to face. As soon as the sun rose, I packed up and prepared to go out. Duanmu Tachio had a habit of waking up early to exercise, so I had to leave the house before he did. That way, I wouldn't be suspected. I walked down the stairs quietly. I guessed that the people in the house hadn't woken up yet. I walked around the living room and went out the door. As I walked through the garden, I inadvertently saw a figure lying on a rattan chair by the rose pond. Was it Dwanmuke? It turned out that he hadn't left the house. I slowly walked to the rattan chair. It was really Dwanmuke. He was lying on the rattan chair sleeping. His coat was covering him, and he was curled up into a ball. It seemed that he had slept here for the whole night. I didn't want to think too much. I quietly walked toward him, afraid that I would wake him up. Just as I reached the tree in front of the rose pond, I suddenly saw another figure take out a towel and cover Dwanmuke with it. That figure looked very familiar. As I carefully thought about who it was, she lowered her head and gently kissed Dwanmuke's forehead. I finally saw her face clearly. It was none other than Uxian. My heart broke. I held back my tears and continued to observe them. After Uxian covered Dwanmuke with a blanket, she gently caressed his face. Then, she sat next to him and quietly looked at him. She was very entranced, and her eyes were full of love. At this moment, Dwanmuke woke up. He opened his eyes and saw Uxian sitting next to him. He immediately sat up from the rattan chair and looked at Uxian. Why are you here? Oh, I came out early. I saw someone here, so I came over. I didn't expect it to be you. Oh. Dwanmuke rubbed his eyes and looked at the towel on his body. He asked Uxian, "This is yours?" Uxian nodded and smiled. Yes. I saw that you were curled up in a ball. I guessed that you were cold, so I went back to my room and took a blanket to cover you. Dwanmuke took the towel off his body and handed it to Uxian. Thank you. You're welcome. Anyway, how did you end up sleeping here? Uxian tilted her head and looked at Dwanmuke. Oh, it's nothing. Dwanmuke looked at his watch and then said to Uxian, It's still early. I'll go back first. Dwanmuke stood up and prepared to leave. Uxian looked at Dwanmuke's back and said, Brother Dwanmu, your face is a bit hot. Go back and take some medicine. Dwanmuke stopped in his tracks and looked at Uxian. Okay, I know. Then he left. Uxian stood there and looked at Dwanmuke's back, a happy smile on her face. I turned and walked toward the living room. I couldn't control the tears in my eyes. As his wife, I couldn't even compare to a mistress. Dwanmuke's attitude toward me and toward Uxian had completely changed. How was I supposed to face Dwanmuke in the future? How was I supposed to face everyone around me? Chapter 72. I don't know how I got into the living room. As soon as I entered, I bumped into Dwanmuke, who was about to go out for his morning exercise. Dad, good morning. Are you going out for your morning exercise? Oh, it's Xiaoli. Yes, I'm going out for my morning exercise. What happened to your eyes? Dwanmuke asked me. Oh, I'm fine. Dad, I'm going to prepare breakfast. I turned around and walked towards the kitchen. I prepared a sumptuous breakfast in the kitchen. One by one, everyone came to the dining table. I sat in my seat and ate my breakfast absent-mindedly. Dwanmuke came downstairs and sat next to me in the dining room. He looked at me but didn't say a word. Everyone at the table quietly ate their breakfast. After a while, Dwanmuke said to me, Why weren't you in your room this morning? I didn't stop what I was doing, and I didn't look at him. I quietly said to him, You weren't in your room either, were you? You weren't in your room when I wasn't. Dwanmuke tilted his head and looked at me. At this time, Xiaofingya looked at us and said, what are you guys talking about? I put down my bowl and chopsticks and said to Dwanmuke and Xiaofingya, Dad, Mom, I'm done eating. I'm going upstairs. Then I turned around and walked upstairs without looking back. When I entered the bedroom, I opened the wardrobe and took out my suitcase. I started to pack my clothes. When I was almost done, the door was suddenly pushed open. Dwanmuke walked in. He saw me packing and rushed in front of me. He looked at me and said, Why are you packing? I didn't say anything and just quietly packed my suitcase. Dwanmuke saw that I didn't answer him. He reached out and grabbed my wrist. He looked at me and said, I asked you a question. Why are you packing? I shook off his hand and glanced at him without saying a word. The Dwanmuke was really angry. He grabbed my suitcase and threw it on the ground. The clothes in the suitcase were scattered all over the place. I stood there and looked at the clothes on the ground. I couldn't help but cry again. I squatted down and picked up the clothes one by one. The Dwanmuke seemed to see me crying. He squatted down and looked at me. What happened? Why don't you say something? Don't hold it in, okay? Holding back my tears, I looked at Dwanmuke and said, I'm going home for a few days. I think the two of us should think about it quietly. What's there to think about? It's all in the past. It's all in the past. Let's not think about it, okay? Dwanmuke held my shoulder. It was clear that he didn't plan on letting me leave. I stood up and looked at him. Let's think about it, I said. My presence here is unnecessary. You'd rather sleep on the rattan chair and let other people take advantage of you than sleep next to me. What's the point of me staying here? I put my clothes into my suitcase and began to tidy up the dressing table. Are you talking about Uxian? Uxian just gave me a blanket. She probably saw that I was too cold, so she covered you with it. That's not a big deal. Dwanmuke seemed to understand that it was because Uxian covered him with a blanket that made me unhappy. I packed up the things on the dressing table and put them into the suitcase. Then I looked at Dwanmuke and said, Does covering you with a blanket require a kiss on the face? Dwanmuke looked at me with a surprised expression. What? A kiss on the face? I don't know. I wiped the tears from my face and said to Dwanmuke, Let's calm down and think about it. You can contact me when you understand. Dwanmuke angrily reached out and threw all the things on the dressing table to the ground. He shouted at me with a hoarse voice. Cold glaze, what do you want? You always misunderstand Uxian and me. What's wrong with Uxian and me? Did something really happen? Or is there something else? Why do you have to say and do this? I pulled the suitcase and walked towards the door. When I opened the door, I bumped into Uxian, who had just walked up the stairs. We looked at each other. Uxian looked at my suitcase and smiled at me. Want to go on a trip? Congratulations, your plan has succeeded. Are you happy? I wish you happiness. I pulled the suitcase and walked down the stairs. By the time I finished speaking, my face was covered in tears. However, I couldn't let Uxian laugh at me in front of her. I could only let it all out when I left. Dwanmuke stood at the top of the stairs and shouted at me. Cold glaze, go. Don't come back. I won't look for you. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong to you. I lowered my head and didn't say anything. I bumped into Xiaofingya, who was walking towards me. Xiaofingya stopped me and held my face. Hey Li'er, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Tell me what's going on. Did Kair bully you? I tried hard not to laugh. Mom, I'm fine. I'm going home for 2 days. I'm leaving. After saying goodbye to Xiaofingya, I walked out of Duanmu's house. I called a taxi and left Duanmu's house. I didn't know how long I had been driving, but I finally arrived at my house. I got out of the car and opened the door. My parents were chatting in the living room. I pulled my suitcase into the living room. They looked up and were surprised to see me. I didn't say anything. My father looked at me and asked, Why did you come back? I lowered my head and didn't dare to look at him. I came home for a few days, I said softly. Did you make parents-in-law unhappy? Did you get kicked out? My father put down the newspaper he was reading and looked at me. I shook my head. I still didn't dare to look at him. My mother saw our awkward conversation and walked over to me. She took my hand and said, Come back for a few days. Mom will ask Auntie to help you tidy up. You can stay downstairs with your father for a while. I pursed my lips and looked at my mother. No, Mom. I'll tidy up myself. I want to be alone. Li'er, what happened? Why do I feel that you're not happy? Did you get sick? Do you want me to take you to see a doctor? My mother stroked my hair and looked at me with a worried expression. Mom, I'm fine. I just want to be alone. Give me a moment. I'll come down and talk to you and Dad. All right. Have a good rest. Call me if you need anything. I hugged my mother and carried my suitcase upstairs. I heard my mother say to my father, Dad, what happened to Li'er? Did she get bullied? I'm so worried. She's never like this. What should I do? My father replied, You give Duanmu's family a call, ask what happened in the end. Don't say too much, just find out from the side. If you really can't do it, make an appointment with Xiaofingya. Chapter 73. I ignored my parents' suspicions and carried my luggage upstairs to my bedroom. After entering the room, I lay on the bed and thought about what had happened in the past 2 days. My tears couldn't stop flowing. I glanced at my phone. There was no call from Douanemou, Quebec. There wasn't even a message. It seemed he didn't miss me. It seemed my departure didn't mean anything to him. Thinking of this, my tears couldn't stop flowing. I didn't know how many times I had cried these past few days. My whole body was very dispirited, and I didn't have a good rest. I decided to take a bath and have a good rest. I forced myself to take a shower and lay down on the bed. I hadn't slept a wink all night, and I was exhausted. I decided to ignore everything else and sleep peacefully. The sun shone through the glass window into the room. The bedroom was warm. I gradually felt sleepy, gently closed my eyes. Just as I was about to fall asleep, my mobile phone suddenly rang. I opened my eyes and picked up the phone to look. It turned out to be Xinyao calling me. I lazily pressed the answer button. Hello. Hello, Xinyao. Sister-in-law, where did you go? Xinyao asked me with a crying voice. Oh, I went home for a few days. Why are you crying? This little girl knew how to care about me. Xinyao then said to me, Sister-in-law, can you come back? I miss you so much. Hearing Xinyao say that, I laughed out loud. I smiled and said to her, Silly girl. I only left you for a day. How could you miss me so quickly? I don't care. Sister-in-law, can you come back quickly? I miss you so much. Dad and Mom miss you so much. Brother also misses you. I was stunned and said to Xinyao, Him? He can't miss me. Okay, don't worry about it. I'll think about it in 2 days. I'll come back. Okay. Xinyao reluctantly hung up the phone. I sighed and closed my eyes. It was better to sleep. Not even 10 minutes after I closed my eyes, my phone rang and woke me up. I helplessly opened my eyes and took out my phone. It was a call from Han Hao. I had some doubts. Why did these people take turns to call me? Feeling helpless, I answered Han Hao's call. Hey, Han Hao, why are you calling me too? You understand. Han Hao's 3 simple words contained a lot of information. I shook my head helplessly and said, All right, what is it? Speak. Nothing much. I just wanted to ask where you are. I'm at my house. I've been back for a few days. What happened? I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. The person I wanted to have a relationship with the most couldn't compare to the friend beside me. How ironic was that? Oh, it's nothing. Are you okay? You've been acting weird these days. Oh, I'm fine. As long as you guys are fine. I'll be back in a few days. I miss Mom and Dad. I made up a random excuse. Okay. You'll definitely come back, right? I laughed. When have I not kept my words? Oh right, I need to trouble you with something. What is it? Just now, Xinyao called me and said she misses me. Help me tell her and let her tell Dad and Mom that I'll be home for 2 days, and then I'll go back. Please. Why are you being so polite with me? I got it. I'll tell her later. Have a good rest. Bye. Han Hao hung up the phone. Listening to the sound of the phone being hung up, my heart felt a little sad. I had asked myself more than once, was it really my fault for throwing a tantrum with Douanemou? But how should I face him? When I thought of Xian's adoring expression, and the image of them hugging each other in bed, my mind was in a mess. I couldn't sleep because of the 2 phone calls. I sat up on the bed and looked out the window. My heart couldn't calm down for a long time. After tossing and turning in the room for a while, I really didn't know what to do. I picked up my phone and prepared to go to the garden. When I walked out of the room and went downstairs, I saw Mom coming out of the study. She saw me and walked towards me. Li'er, did you sleep well? Mom gently stroked my hair. I shook my head. No, I couldn't sleep at all. Mom smiled and said, Silly child, why don't you rest a bit? Do you want to eat something? Mom will make it for you. I smiled and said to Mom, Mom, I don't really want to eat anything. I'm going to stroll around the garden first. You go ahead. Then I walked out of the room and walked towards the garden. When I arrived at the rose pool in the garden, I stood there and looked at the roses. I thought of the flower pool that Douanemou had made for me at Douanemou's house. My mood instantly dropped. When I thought of Douanemou, my whole state of mind became bad again. At that moment the phone in my hand rang. I picked it up and saw that it was Duanmu, Quebec. Why would he take the initiative to call me? I hesitated for a moment, but still decided to pick up the phone. Hello, I said in a low voice. Hello what? Where are you? He asked me fiercely. I was stunned. It seemed that he still hadn't calmed down. I hadn't done anything wrong. Why did he have to be so humble? I said confidently into the phone. I'm at home. What's wrong? Which house are you at? Duanmu asked. I'm at my own house. I told you I'll be back for 2 days. I was almost angered to death by Duanmu's question. Duanmu sighed and said, Come back. Was he trying to persuade me to go back? But why did his tone sound so strange? It was as if he was trying to force me to go back. I didn't say anything. Duanmu saw that I didn't answer, so he continued. Come back quickly. When you left, Dad, Mom, and Xinyao all ran over to ask me what happened. How would I know what happened to you? You didn't tell me. I immediately understood. It turned out that he was trying to persuade me to come back, because he couldn't explain himself. I laughed and said, So without all this pressure, you wouldn't have taken the initiative to contact me, right? Duanmu sighed again. His tone suddenly became gentle. He whispered to me, Honey, let's be good, okay? Come back quickly. Dad and Mom have already lectured me. They said that I don't know how to be considerate, that I don't know how to care about you. I'll slowly change in the future, okay? I don't want you to be under so much pressure. I just feel that a lot of things have happened recently. Your attitude towards me has changed a lot. I'm also trying to figure out my own problems. Is it because I'm not good enough to you? Is that why others took advantage of me? So let's calm down and think about it for a few days. We'll talk again when we understand, okay? Chapter 74. After a long pause, there was no reply from the other side of the phone. I didn't hang up either. I guess he was thinking about what to tell me. After a while, Duanmu finally said, You can do whatever you want. I can't control your thoughts. If you don't want to come back, then do as you wish. I have something to do, so I'll hang up first. Before I could say anything, Duanmu had already hung up the phone. I laughed coldly, and finally couldn't control my tears from flowing down. For the next 3 or 4 days I stayed at home. I didn't even want to go to the garden. My mother looked at me, her eyes blurred every day. She didn't seem to care about me at all. In the past few days, other than Xinyao and Han Hao who occasionally called to chat with me, no one else contacted me. Time had smoothed out my heartache, and my heart gradually calmed down. Maybe Duanmu was getting farther and farther away from me. Or maybe he didn't love me that much anymore. He didn't treat me as his own life anymore. On the weekend morning, the sun was especially bright. I decided not to laze around at home. I freshened up and went out for a walk. I asked Xi and Yao to meet me at the entrance of the shopping center. It just so happened that our favorite brand was on sale. It would be convenient for me to ask her about Duanmu's recent situation. As soon as I arrived at the entrance of the shopping center, I saw X and Yao standing not far from me, waiting for me. I smiled and walked towards her. When she saw me, she ran up to me and threw herself into my arms. It was her usual greeting. After hugging me for a while, she held my arm and began our shopping trip. As we walked, we talked about what had happened in the past few days. I looked at X and Yao and asked, How's your brother? Sister-in-law, I knew you missed my brother very much. Ever since you left, he has been going out early and coming home late every day. Sometimes when I call him, he says that he is very busy and ignores me. I don't know if he is really busy or just pretending to be busy. I nodded thoughtfully. Oh, a sister-in-law, please forgive my brother. You care about him a lot, don't you? He's a straightforward boy. Sometimes, he doesn't think before he speaks. After you left, he regretted it a lot. So please don't lower yourself to his level, okay? Xi and Yao shook my arm and mischievously acted cute. I smiled and stroked Xinyao's hair, softly saying to her, Silly girl, let me think about it. Okay, you don't need to worry about my brother. You just need to think about Mom and Dad, and think about me. You can treat my brother as heir. Xi and Yao smiled and nodded vigorously. We shopped for a long time, and bought a lot of things. When it was almost time for dinner, Xan Yao said she wanted to treat me to a big meal. She took me to a Western restaurant on the top floor of the shopping center. We found a window seat and sat down. Xan Yao ordered a table full of sumptuous dishes. Then, she began to tell me about the things that had happened between her and Han Hao. Xan Yao didn't hold back anything from me. She shared all of her innermost thoughts with me. It showed how much she trusted me. Of course, I also trusted her. I knew she wasn't a girl with bad intentions. She wouldn't harm me. She just wanted everyone around her to live a good life. Just as we were chatting passionately, the restaurant's door was pushed open. A tinkling laughter sounded. A woman walked into the restaurant with a man's arm. The woman was smiling happily, but the man had a serious expression and didn't pay attention to her. I glanced at them and froze. The man wasn't just anyone, he was Duanmu Quebec. After seeing them, I turned my head away. My heart was very uncomfortable, and my heart was beating very fast. I used my arm to cover the side of my face, afraid they would see me. Xan Yao saw my strange behavior. She looked at me and asked in a soft voice, "Sister-in-law, what's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" I shook my head and smiled at her. "Hurry up and eat. After we finish eating, we can go shopping." Just as I lowered my head and hurried to finish eating and leave, the laughter got closer and closer. I heard the woman say, "Let's sit here." I didn't dare to raise my head. I was afraid to look at Duanmu K's face. I was afraid that the two of us would be embarrassed. "Brother, why are you here?" Xan Yao saw Duanmu Quebec. She stood up and greeted Duanmu Quebec. "Brother, who is this woman?" The woman's voice was full of dissatisfaction. She said to Xan Yao, "And who are you? Why are you calling our family's young master K so affectionately?" "Brother, what do you mean by this? Who is this woman?" Xan Yao was angry. She pointed at the woman and asked Duanmu Quebec. As soon as I saw that the situation wasn't good, I stood up and pulled Xinyao to leave. But I didn't expect that when I turned around, I would bump into Duanmu Quebec. I lost my center of gravity and fell onto the chair. My eyes met Duanmu K's shocked expression. Seeing that I had fallen, Duanmu K grabbed my arm and pulled me up from the chair. He held me in his arms and then looked at me and said, "Why are you here?" When the woman saw that Duanmu K was hugging me, she became even more unhappy. She used all her strength to pull at Duanmu K's arm that was hugging me. She muttered, "Let her go. You can't hug her. How is she better than me? Let her go." Duanmu K didn't let go. He let the woman tear at his clothes. His eyes were fixed on me. I sighed and pushed Duanmu K's arm away. Then I picked up the bag on the chair and looked at Xan Yao. "Xan Yao, let's go." Xan Yao glared at the woman. Then she looked at Duanmu K and said, "Sister-in-law, let's go." Then she pulled me and walked past Duanmu Quebec. Duanmu K suddenly grabbed my arm from behind. "Don't go," he said. His tone was still tough. I didn't do anything. But why did it sound like I had made a big mistake? I tried my best to hold back my tears. I turned my head towards Duanmu K and said, "Let me go. Your date is waiting for you. I'm sorry for interrupting your date with her." I pushed away Duanmu K's hand that was holding mine and turned around to continue walking. At this moment, the woman suddenly rushed in front of me and Xan Yao. "Stop. Did I allow you to leave?" Xan Yao was very angry. She reached out to hit the woman, but I pulled her arm to stop her from being impulsive. When the woman saw that Xan Yao was about to hit her, she was flustered and exasperated. She reached out and slapped me across the face. Before I could react, Duanmu K had already rushed in front of me. He held me in his arms and slapped the woman across the face. Chapter 75. All of us were stunned. I struggled to push Duanmu K away. The woman covered her face and reached out to grab my hair. "Ah!" I screamed. She pushed me with all her strength. I lost my balance and fell to the ground. Xinyao ran to my side and supported me. She glared at the woman and said, "Are you crazy?" Then she looked at me and said, "Sister-in-law, are you okay? Let me help you up." Duanmu K reached out to help me up, but I shook him off. By then, the area was filled with onlookers. 2 or 3 waiters came over to ask what had happened. The woman stood in front of me and looked at Duanmu Quebec. You hit me because of this woman. Duanmu K looked at her coldly and only said one word. Scram. The woman became even angrier. She shouted at Duanmu K. You told me to get lost? If you weren't so handsome, do you think I would be willing to talk to you? Don't you think too highly of yourself? Get lost, or I won't be polite to you. Duanmu K's face was very ugly. He looked at the woman, as if he was about to explode. The woman covered her face and sneered at Duanmu Quebec. Okay, don't be so happy. Let me tell you, if I hadn't saved you, would you still be standing here alive? You would have been hit by a car and died. Shut up. Duanmu K suppressed his anger and looked at the woman. I stood up and patted the dirt off my body. I looked at Xinyao's worried face and said, Let's go. Sister-in-law, are you okay? Do you want to go to the hospital? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Xinyao asked worriedly. I shook my head and looked at her. I'm fine. Let's go. Duanmu K suddenly rushed in front of me and looked at me. Don't go. Can you listen to my explanation? I smiled and looked at him. No need. You guys can continue. I don't want to talk to you right now. After saying that, I pulled Xinyao out of the restaurant. After we came out, my tears couldn't stop flowing. I quickly walked to the nearest chair and sat down. I covered my face and cried. Xinyao took a pile of things and sat beside me. She didn't say anything. She didn't know how to open her mouth to comfort me. While I was crying my heart out, I suddenly felt a figure walk next to me. Before I could react, that person carried me horizontally. I hurriedly hugged that person's neck and lifted my head. It was Duanmu Quebec. He hugged me and didn't say anything. We walked forward in a hurry. Since we were in a shopping mall, his strange behavior attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Everyone looked at us with strange gazes. I looked up at Duanmu K and said softly, Please put me down. Duanmu K didn't answer me. He carried me all the way through the elevator floor by floor. Finally, we arrived at the underground parking lot of the mall. When we reached his car, he put me down. He held my hand, opened the door to the back seat, and threw me in. Before I could react, he had already locked the door. Then, he walked around the car and sat in the driver's seat. Without saying a word, he started the car and took me away from the mall without telling me where we were going. I had the illusion that I was kidnapped. My wallet, backpack, and everything I bought was with Xinyao. I didn't have a penny on me, and I didn't even have my phone. I sat in the back seat and stared at Duanmu K's cold face reflected in the rearview mirror. I didn't know how to talk to him. We didn't talk to each other on the way back. It was as if the air had frozen. It was so quiet that it was scary. The car drove out of the city and went straight to the top of a mountain in the suburbs. The car finally stopped. I didn't move from my seat. Duanmu K got out of the driver's seat and walked to the back seat door. After he opened the door, he looked at me and said, Come out. I didn't say anything and got out of the car. It was a quiet mountaintop. During the day, there weren't many tourists. There was a very unique pavilion at the top of the mountain. I glanced at Duanmu K and walked toward the pavilion. He locked the car and followed me into the pavilion. I leaned against the pillar and looked at the scenery below. Duanmu K stood next to me and looked at me blankly. He didn't speak for a long time. Since he didn't want to talk, there was no need for me to take the initiative to talk to him. I silently looked at the scenery, my heart sinking into endless thoughts. Duanmu K suddenly sat in front of me, disturbing my mood. I rolled my eyes at him and turned my head away. He looked at me and said, Why don't you give me a chance to explain? I didn't look at him and said, What else is there to say? The first time was like this. The second time was like this. What about the third time? The third time is still like this? Duanmu K sighed. I don't know her. When I was crossing the road, I was absent-minded and didn't look at the car. I was almost hit by a car. She was the one who pulled me. To thank her, I promised to treat her to a meal. That's amazing. You just met and you're already hugging and whispering sweet nothings to each other? I glanced at Duanmu K and then turned my head away. I don't know her. I didn't even know she was hugging me. If you're angry because of this, I don't think it's necessary. Necessary? I'm your wife. If I see you flirting with another woman, how would I feel? Have you ever thought about it from my point of view? Okay, let's just say it was you Xian who took the initiative to seduce you. Let's just say it was you Xian who forced you to do something with her. Then what about this woman today? If you didn't give her a chance to take advantage of the situation, would she have stuck so close to you? Do you really not understand? Or are you just pretending not to? I turned my head and looked at Duanmu Quebec. Duanmu K furrowed his brows. How is this related to you Xian? She did have feelings for me in the past, but I didn't accept her. How can you be so sensitive and suspicious? You haven't seen the truth. You shouldn't say things like that so easily. I stood up. I looked at Duanmu K and said, the truth? What truth do you want? Isn't it enough that I saw you and you Xian naked? I saw you walking with another woman. Can't I think more about it? Why do you have to ask so much of me? Is it that hard for me to make you love me wholeheartedly? Duanmu K also stood up and looked at me. You guessed all of this. I've already told you. You Xian, and I didn't do anything. I only met that woman for the first time. All of this is your own imagination. I didn't do anything wrong to you. And I didn't say I don't want you. Duanmu K's voice got louder and louder. I looked into Duanmu K's eyes, and tears flowed down uncontrollably. Chapter 76. I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes, and tried my best not to cry. I looked at Duanmu K and said, since you feel so wronged when you're with me, then don't force yourself. I'll let go. Let's get a divorce. Duanmu K was stunned when he heard my words. He held me down and squeezed my shoulders. What did you say? Are you sure? Have you made your decision? I didn't dare to look at him. I turned my face away, and my tears couldn't stop flowing. Duanmu K saw that I didn't answer him, and he got even angrier. He turned my face away and said, look at me? Cold glaze. Are you sure you want to divorce me, Duanmu K? Are you sure you want to leave me? I pushed Duanmu K away and looked at him. What do you want me to do? There's already a conflict between us. You'll never give in to me, and I've always misunderstood you. Tell me, how can we resolve this? Isn't leaving the best way? That way, you can be with the woman you like, and you won't have to think about me. I cried very sadly. I stood in front of him, and my tears couldn't stop flowing. I covered my face with my hands and cried loudly. You're wrong. From the beginning, I've only loved you. I won't even look at any other woman who appears by my side. You're the only one in my heart. Do you know that? Xiaoli, I really love you. Duanmu K's voice suddenly softened. He hugged me tightly in his arms. I didn't struggle. I leaned on his chest and cried sadly. The two of us stood in the middle of the pavilion, hugging each other. Neither of us spoke. I leaned into Duanmu K's embrace and cried for God knows how long. Gradually, I got tired from crying and fell asleep unknowingly. When I woke up again, I realized that I was lying on the long bench in the pavilion. My head was in Duanmu K's arms, and he was hugging me tightly. I didn't know why I was hugging him tightly too. I lifted my head to look at his handsome face, and he was also looking down at me. I accidentally met his gaze, and my face suddenly became hot. I didn't dare to lift my head to look at him again. So I lowered my head and didn't know what to do. Duanmu K stroked my hair and said softly, "You're awake? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" I struggled to get up from his arms. I didn't dare to look at him. I lowered my head and sat on the bench, tidying my clothes. Duanmu K looked at me and asked, "What's wrong? Are you still angry?" I sighed and looked at him. "There's nothing to be angry about. I don't want to be angry. You're the one who hurt me again and again. It doesn't matter, as long as you're not angry." Duanmu K suddenly pulled me into his arms and kissed me gently on my forehead. He looked at me and said, "Then I'll pretend I didn't hear you talk about divorce. Just this once. You're not allowed to mention divorce again." I looked at him and thought for a while. "I'll think about it." Duanmu K became emotional again. He shook my shoulder and said, "What's there to think about? I know I made a mistake. Don't be angry, okay?" Seeing Duanmu K's sincere attitude, I decided to stop. I stroked his face and said, "Let's stop this time. It won't be so easy next time. I hope there won't be a next time." Duanmu K hugged me in his arms and said softly, "I won't. It's too hard to make you happy. Although I know I made a mistake in the first place, and let others take advantage of me and make you suffer. I've already realized my mistake. So, wifey, can you forgive me? I leaned into Dwanmukei's arms. I hadn't heard his gentle voice in a long time. The current him was better. At least he didn't make me angry. All right. When we get back, let's go to your house to get our luggage and go home. I shook my head and looked at Dwanmukei. I don't want to go back yet. Dwanmukei's expression became very serious. He looked at me and said, "What's wrong now? Didn't you forgive me? Then let's go home. You made everyone's imagination run wild when you went back to your parents' house. I just don't know how to face my parents. I don't want to see you Xian either. I don't know why, but I feel disgusted when I see her." I told him my worries. I thought Dwanmukei would comfort me, but the opposite happened. Dwanmukei let go of my hand and stood up. He looked at me angrily and said, "You Xian again. How long do you want her to exist between us? When we were having a good talk, you had to bring her out. You even said I didn't want to live a good life. You were the one who said everything first." Seeing Dwanmukei's expression change so quickly, I stood up and looked at him. "Forget it, Dwanmukei. We still can't talk about it today. I'm not afraid to tell you that the biggest problem between us is in the heart. If you can't solve it, then it will completely affect our relationship. Do as you see fit. When you've thought it through, then we'll talk about the future." Dwanmukei looked at me impatiently and said, "I can solve it, but you have to tell me how to solve it." "Fine, you don't have to tell me, but you have to tell me what I can do to make you happy." I rolled my eyes at Dwanmukei and said, "You can't ask me that. You know what kind of answer I want. You can't ask me to kick her out." Dwanmukei shook his head helplessly. I nodded and looked at him. "What's wrong with that? She's already jeopardized our relationship. Can't I ask her to leave if I want to? I used to think you were a reasonable woman. I didn't expect you to be no different from other women." Dwanmukei threw down these words and sat down on a bench in the pavilion. I looked at him and sneered. "That's right. I'm no different from other women. I'm just like other women. I'm too possessive of my man. I don't want to share you with others. Is that wrong?" "Yes, it's not wrong. You're always right." Dwanmukei scratched his head and leaned against a pillar next to the bench. He looked like he had nothing to live for. I smiled and looked at Dwanmukei. "Forget it. Think about it yourself. Contact me when you've made up your mind. I'm leaving." Then I left the pavilion. Dwanmukei sat there and shouted at me, "Wait for me. I'll take you back." I didn't say I wouldn't take you back. How are you going to get down from the top of this mountain by yourself? I didn't turn around. I waved in his direction and said loudly, "No need. I can walk by myself. You can go on, young Master Dwanmu." Chapter 77. I walked past Dwanmukei and walked back along the road we had come from. Dwanmukei shouted at me from behind, but I ignored him and kept walking. After walking for a while, a car suddenly appeared next to me. The car's speed was about the same as my walking speed. I turned my head and saw that it was Dwanmukei. He rolled down the front passenger window and looked in my direction from time to time. As he drove, he said to me, "Shally, let's not play around, okay? Get in the car first and we'll talk in the car." I didn't answer. I glanced at him, then turned my head and walked forward. Dwanmukei followed me, trying to maintain the same speed as me. There were several times when the cars behind us honked at him to speed up, but Dwanmukei ignored them. As he drove, he kept talking to me about all kinds of things. I didn't pay attention to him, but he was talking very enthusiastically. After another intersection, we would enter the city. Dwanmukei didn't give up and followed me closely. After entering the city, if Dwanmukei continued to drive like this, it would be too dangerous. For his safety, I decided to get in his car. I stopped on the side of the road. Dwanmukei also stopped his car. I opened the door and got in. Dwanmukei looked at me excitedly and said, "You're finally willing to get in my car. Have you forgiven me? That's great." I rolled my eyes at Dwanmukei and said, "I haven't forgiven you. I'm tired. Take me home." Okay. You haven't forgiven me. I'll do as you wish." Dwanmukei started the car and muttered, but his face was full of smiles. On the way home, Duanmuke told me a lot of things. They were all messy things that happened around him when I wasn't by his side. However, I didn't know who spread the rumors. But people who knew about me and Duanmuke all said that we were divorced. As a result, a lot of women started to appear in front of Duanmuke to attract his attention. They didn't hesitate to play some tricks just to get his attention. This phenomenon surprised me. Although Duanmuke was a public figure in a city and was also a handsome guy, no matter how crazy the women were, they wouldn't try to seduce him. While I was thinking, we arrived at my house. I was about to get out of the car when Duanmuke grabbed me and held me tightly in his arms. He gently stroked my hair and said, "Shaoli, let's move our things home. Dad, Mom, and Xinyao all miss you very much, okay? Just come back with me." I pushed Duanmuke away and shook my head hard. I smiled and said to him, "I haven't thought it through yet. Can you give me a little more time? I'll definitely go back with you once I've thought it through." Duanmuke sighed and said, "But I don't want to let you go like this. I don't feel safe at all. It's fine if you're by my side now. But as long as you're not by my side, I'm worried that you'll leave me. This feeling is too scary. I've never felt it before." I stroked his hair and said, "Okay, don't think about it anymore. I said that I'll go back once I've thought it through. It won't take too long. You have to give me some time. Please believe me." Duanmuke thought for a while and said, "Then I'll move here. It's not too far away anyway. It'll be very convenient to drive back and forth. I'll also explain to Father Lung why you suddenly came back. Forget it. I'll be lucky if you don't get in my way." After listening to Duanmuke's brainless answer, I almost spat out a mouthful of blood. I knocked his head and said, "You only know how to come up with stupid ideas. If you have time, go back and think about the problem between us." Duanmuke shook his head and said, Okay. I'll think about it, okay? But let's make it clear. You can't leave me. Look at how you're behaving. I'll have to find out who spread the rumor that we're divorced. That's too much. I'll go first. Drive slowly. Okay, then I'll look into it too. Bye." I waved at Duanmuke and drove away. I turned and walked through the front door. As soon as I entered the living room, my parents surrounded me and glared at me. I was stunned. I looked at them and said, "Dad, Mom, what's wrong with you? Why are you looking at me like that? Li-er, tell your mother the truth. Did you divorce Duanmuke?" My mother walked up to me and stroked my hair. Before I could answer, my father glared at me and said, "You better tell me that's not true. Right now, our cooperation with the Black Viper Group is very good. If because of your problem, there are problems with the business between the two companies, then it's up to you to solve it." I calmly sighed and said, "Dad, this isn't true. I just met Duanmuke back. If I'm really divorced, why would I want to see him? This is a rumor made up by others." I paused and looked at my father. I continued, "Dad, don't you think you're being too cruel by linking my marriage with the interests of the entire group?" "That's right. Dad, why don't you feel sorry for our Li-er? This matter can't be casually heard by others." My mother protected me. She knew that my father didn't feel sorry for me. This marriage contract was originally signed for the interests of both groups. Now you're talking about feelings with me. Don't you think it's nonsense? My father asked me very seriously. I sighed and said to my father, "That's right. At the beginning, I was thinking that I only agreed to marry Duanmuke for the interests of our Red Minghui. But after a long time, I found that I already had feelings for him. I can't control these feelings. I also hope that it's fake, but I really like him now." "Then if you like him so much, why did you come back for no reason? You didn't say anything even when I asked you." "Dad, it's really nothing. What do you want me to say?" Although I knew that I couldn't lie in front of my father, I really couldn't tell him the details of my return. "Nothing. I heard from your mother-in-law that before you came back, you and Duanmuke had a big fight. The fight was very fierce, so you ran away from home. Is that true?" My father reached out and threw the newspaper to the ground. He angrily yelled at me. I stood in front of my parents, not daring to move. I lowered my head and clasped my hands behind my back. I was like a child who did something wrong, waiting for my parents to criticize me. Chapter 78. Seeing my aggrieved appearance, my father sighed. His tone was a lot calmer as he softly said to me, "Child, although we don't take the initiative to cause trouble, we absolutely can't tolerate being bullied. Tell me, why did you and Dwanmuke quarrel so fiercely?" I thought for a moment and decided not to tell my parents the truth. I was afraid they wouldn't be able to accept it. I looked up at my father and said, "Dad, you don't have to worry about this. It's inevitable that husband and wife quarrel. It's not a big deal, it's just a small matter. The two of them didn't agree, so they quarreled for a while. They didn't say much. I just happened to miss you guys, so I came back." I didn't know if this perfunctory answer could hide from my father's sharp eyes. Small matter? I don't think it's that simple. My father's serious eyes made me feel very scared. My mother saw my frightened expression and pulled my father back. She looked at him and said, "Aya, you don't have to worry about it. Children are all grown up. It's inevitable that they will stumble. Why do you care so much? When you were young, you always quarreled with me. My parents didn't care either. So you don't need to worry about it. I believe that Lear can handle it well. All right, let's go inside." Mother gave me a meaningful glance. Then without any explanation, she pulled father away. I stood there inside. My mother was still the one who knew me best. I curled up on the sofa. My mind was in a mess, but the person I thought about the most was Duan Quebec. I thought about his good points, thought about his bad points, and thought about every word he had said to me. While I was in a daze, my phone suddenly rang. I picked it up and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment before answering the phone. "Hello? Hello?" A man's hoarse voice came from the other side of the phone. "Hello, is this Miss Cold Glaze?" "I am. May I know who is this?" "I'm calling from a central hospital. Our hospital just sent in an emergency patient. He was injured in a car accident. We looked through his information and found your contact information. So we called you." "Car accident? There is no one around me who was injured in a car accident. You may have dialed the wrong number." She was already very annoyed, and this kind of inexplicable phone call made her even more annoyed. "Aren't you Mr. Dwanmuke's family member?" "Dwanmuke? What did you say? Dwanmuke had a car accident?" I suddenly became excited and shouted into the phone, "Yes. Please hurry to the hospital to go through the relevant procedures." After saying that, the person on the other end of the phone hung up. After hanging up, I kept feeling that something wasn't right. Dwanmuke had just sent me home, and he was fine just now. How could he have gotten into an accident so quickly? Could it be that he had met a swindler? It's true that there are a lot of telecom scams these days, but it's not as real as it sounds. I guessed that it might be a telecom scam, so I decided to ignore it and take a good rest first. Then I'll get up and think about the future. Just as I was about to walk up the stairs, my phone rang again. I picked it up and saw that it was Xiaofinya. I quickly picked up the phone and answered, "Mom, it's Xiaoli. What's wrong?" After the phone was connected, the other side didn't speak at first, but I heard a lot of noise. "Hello? Mom? Mom, are you there? Why aren't you talking?" After a while, Xiaofinya's trembling voice finally came from the other side of the phone. Xiaoli, just now, the hospital called me and said that Kair had a car accident. What should I do?" Xiaofinya was already sobbing. "Mom, don't cry. Is there no one else around you? Where are you now?" I heard Xiaofinya's voice, and I suddenly felt anxious. I'm on my way to the hospital. "Okay, Mom, wait for me. I'll be right there." I hung up the phone, grabbed my bag, and ran to the door. Since it was time for the taxi shift, there weren't any taxis at the door. I stood at the door feeling anxious. Our driver had gone out to run some errands, and he wouldn't be able to come back in time. Just as I was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan, a car suddenly stopped in front of me. I rolled down the window and saw that it was none other than Han Hao. Han Hao looked at my anxious appearance and said, "Let's go. Get in the car. I'll take you there." I didn't have time to think too much and directly jumped into Han Hao's car. I sat next to Han Hao and quietly looked ahead. He glanced at me and said, "Are you going to the hospital?" I turned my head and looked at him in surprise. "You know about it too?" Han Hao nodded, looked ahead and said, "Yes, I know. Auntie called Uncle." At that time, I just happened to be next to her. Uncle had already gone over first. "I thought of you. You came out of the Duanmu residence without a car, so I took a detour to pick you up and go with you." "Thank you so much. Did Uncle and Auntie tell you anything about Duanmu K's situation?" "Not really. I just heard that Duanmu K was in a car accident. I think he's in the hospital. I saw that there was still time, so I came over." Han Hao looked at me and smiled. "Thank you. I don't know how he is now." I rested my chin on my hand and looked at the scenery outside the window. Han Hao turned his head and looked at me. "You don't have to worry too much. Duanmu K's body is very good. His life won't be taken away so easily. Don't worry." Han Hao patted my shoulder. "I hope so." I suddenly thought of something and looked at Han Hao. "What about Xinyao? How did Xinyao get there?" "I just contacted her. She's already gone with Auntie Xiao. We should be there soon. Don't worry." I nodded firmly. Later, Han Hao and I didn't talk about anything else on the way. My heart had already flown to the hospital. I mainly wanted to know what was going on with Duanmu, Quebec. Finally, we arrived at the hospital. While we were at a loss, we met Xinyao. Xinyao had already arrived at the hospital. When she saw me, Xinyao threw herself at me. She hugged me and cried. "Silly girl, don't cry, your brother will get better." I gently stroked Xinyao's back, comforting her not to think too much. Xinyao leaned into my arms and cried even harder. She whispered, "Sister-in-law, I'm so scared. First you left me and went back to your family. Then my brother became like this. I'm really scared. I'm scared that these things will happen to me. I'm scared that I'll lose you." Chapter 79. I gently patted Xinyao back and comforted her. When I looked up, I saw Xiaofengya standing at the door of the emergency room, anxiously pacing back and forth. I handed Xinyao to Han Hao and asked him to take care of her. Then, I walked over to Xiaofengya. I gently patted Xiaofengya's shoulder. She turned to look at me, tears streaming down her face. I held her hand and said, "Mom, don't worry. It's going to be okay." Xiaofengya cried even harder. She grabbed my hand and said, "How can I not worry? How could a person get into a car accident? He's still so young. If something really happens to him, how can his father and I live?" I patted Xiaofengya's back and asked her to control her emotions. She shouldn't cry so hard. I was afraid that she wouldn't be able to take the blow and cause more problems. At this moment, Duanmu Lixiong arrived at the door of the emergency room. When he saw us, he walked up to Xiaofengya and grabbed her shoulders tightly. "What's going on?" he asked. "What's going on?" Xiaofengya continued to cry. "I don't know. I was preparing dinner at home when I received a call. They said that Kair had been in a car accident and was sent here. They asked me to come here immediately." "Is Kair in there?" Duanmu Tachio was a little agitated. He grabbed Xiaofengya's shoulder with all his strength. Xiaofengya looked at him and nodded. "It's Kair," she said softly. "He was just brought in when I got here. I wanted to follow him into the emergency room, but the nurse stopped me." Duanmu Tachio couldn't take the blow. He lost his balance and sat down on a chair by the emergency room door. I hurried over to support him. "Dad, are you okay? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" Duanmu Tachio shook his head. He looked up at the ceiling and sighed. "I hope Kair can make it." Looking at Duanmu Tachio, I couldn't see his usual serious and cold face. Instead, I felt sympathy for him. I went to the corridor and fetched 2 cups of hot water. I handed them to Duanmu Tachio and Xiaofengya so that they could calm down for a while. After more than half an hour, the light at the entrance of the emergency room finally went out. A doctor walked out. He glanced at all of us and then said, "May I ask who is Duanmu K's family member?" Everyone gathered around. Duanmu Tachio and Xiaofengya stood up. Duanmu Tachio looked at the doctor and said, "I'm Duanmu K's father. You can talk to us. We're all his family." The doctor took off his mask and looked at Duanmu Tachio. "It's like this, Mr. Duanmu. Duanmu K's surgery was a success." "That's great." Xianyao cheered. All of us let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, this was the result we wanted. The doctor signaled for us to be quiet. He looked at Duan Mutachio and said, "However, there's one thing I need to tell you. Although the surgery was a success, he's still in critical condition. We'll see if he can get out of critical condition within 48 hours. Therefore, the patient will have to stay in the hospital for a while. Even if he wakes up, we'll have to observe him for a few days before we can make a decision." "Yes, doctor. I understand." Duan Mutachio turned to look at Xai Yao and Han Hao. "Xai Yao, you and Han Hao go and take care of your brother's hospitalization procedures." I walked in front of the doctor and asked in a soft voice, "Hello, doctor. I'm Duan Mukei's wife. I'd like to ask, what should we do while he's out of critical condition? What should we pay attention to?" The doctor looked at me and said, "Give the patient enough time to rest. Don't make a fuss around him. Let him go. He's so young. He'll make it." The doctor patted my shoulder and went back into the emergency room. After a while, the door to the emergency room finally opened. A few nurses carried Duan Mukei's mobile bed to a specific room. When I came out, I saw Duan Mukei lying on the bed. His eyes were closed, and his face was pale. There wasn't even a trace of red in it. His face, neck, and exposed shoulders were covered in different degrees of abrasions. Seeing him lying on the bed, my heart ached. Tears streamed down my face, but I forced myself not to cry. At a time like this, he needed my encouragement and support, not my weak self. The nurses pushed him into the intensive care unit. We couldn't enter the room, so we could only look at him through the glass window from afar. Seeing that Duan Mukei was fine, I decided to send Duan Mutachio and Xiao Fengya home. After all, the huge Kurosawa couldn't be without a leader, and the Duanmu family couldn't be without Xiao Fengya. Xiao Fengya and Duan Mutachio didn't want to leave. I persuaded them for a long time and promised that I would contact them as soon as Duan Mukei woke up. Only then did they reluctantly leave the hospital. After Duan Mutachio and Xiao Fengya left, I drove away Han Hao and Xinyao. The Duan Mukei's operation had been successful, so there was no need for more people to waste their time here. It took them a lot of effort to drive them away. After they left, I let out a long sigh and sat on the bench outside the intensive care unit. From my position, I could see the Duan Mukei lying inside through the glass window. Looking at Duan Mukei, who was lying there motionless, I didn't feel good in my heart. I started to regret throwing a tantrum with him. I started to regret quarreling with him. I also suddenly felt that if it wasn't for my willfulness, he might not have had so many things happen to him. Maybe it was really my fault. No matter what, as long as he can wake up and safely get through the dangerous period, I can treat it as if nothing happened and forgive him. I didn't know how much time had passed, but my head was leaning against the wall. My eyelids gradually became heavy, and I couldn't keep them open. I closed my eyes and leaned against the bench, feeling very uncomfortable. Just as I was about to fall asleep, I suddenly felt someone cover me with something. I opened my eyes and saw Yu Xan covering me with a jacket. She was stunned when she saw me, but she still covered me with the jacket. She stood in front of me and touched the glass window with one hand. She looked at the Duan Mukei lying inside, surrounded by all kinds of wires. Her expression was full of pity. I stared blankly at the glass window for a long time. After letting out a long breath, she turned to look at me. Her eyes were full of helplessness. Chapter 80. Yu Xian walked to my side and sat down. She handed me a can of coffee. I looked at her and took the can. I opened it and took a few sips. "If you're too tired, you should sleep for a while. At least I'm here. I can still help you look after him." Yu Xian's eyes were fixed on Duan Mukei as she spoke to me softly. I thought to myself, is she helping me out of the goodness of her heart? Shouldn't she hate me the most? Why is she suddenly being so kind to me? I thought for a moment and looked at her. No need. I'm not very sleepy. Yu Xian smiled coldly and looked at me. What? Are you afraid I'll hurt you while you're sleeping? No, I'm afraid you'll hurt Duanmu Quebec. I looked at her and said cautiously. Then you're thinking too much. I can hurt anyone but not him. Yu Xian turned her head and looked at Duanmu Quebec. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. That better be the case. Actually, I envy you. Hearing Yu Xian's words, I opened my eyes and looked at her. She looked at me and said, "You will never be erased from Duanmukei's heart. You are the only person in his heart." Even that day when you two quarreled, he stormed home angrily and hid in his bedroom to get drunk. He asked the auntie to bring him some alcohol. I saw that this was a good opportunity to be alone with him. So I took the initiative to ask the auntie to bring him some alcohol. In the end, when I opened the door, he was dead drunk and his mouth was full of your name. Actually, I knew he had drunk too much, so I took off his clothes while he was drunk. I also took off my own clothes. I thought he would mistake me for you and would have sex with me, but I guessed wrong. He didn't even hug me and fell asleep on the bed by himself. I looked at Yu Xian. So what Duanmukei said was the truth. Nothing really happened between the two of them. Yu Xian paused and said, "But you definitely won't guess why Duanmukei didn't have sex with me. It's not because he was drunk." "What is it?" I asked. Yu Xian sneered and looked at me. "It's because he said the smell on my body wasn't familiar to him. Therefore, I'm not his woman and he won't touch me. He said the smell that only Shaoli has is the smell that he loves the most." Hearing those words, my heart broke. His heart is full of you, and he can't tolerate even the slightest bit of me. But I'm still willing to fight with you. Do you know why? It's because I want you to leave him. I want his heart to only have me. I want his eyes to only see me. My heart couldn't calm down for a long time. It seemed I had misunderstood Duanmu Quebec. But why did Yu Xian tell me the truth tonight? I decided to ask her, "Yu Xian, you didn't have to tell me these things. But why did you tell me?" "There's no reason. Some things, the more serious you are about it, the more painful it will be. I guess that's what you're feeling right now." "What do you mean by that?" Yu Xian's way of thinking was always a little strange. "It seems your IQ isn't that high. Don't tell me you're so naive to think that Duanmukei's car accident has nothing to do with you." Yu Xian stood up and walked in front of me. She crossed her arms and looked at me. "What does it have to do with me?" My heart was a little scared, and my voice trembled a little. Yu Xian looked at me and laughed. "You see, you're already feeling guilty. I guess you've already guessed what it is. Duanmukei's car accident does have something to do with you. If it wasn't because you didn't trust him, and if it wasn't because you were throwing a tantrum, would he have gone to find you? His head would be full of thoughts about you. As a result, he was distracted and caused the car accident. Don't you blame yourself for this?" I suddenly felt that Yu Xian's words were very reasonable. Maybe it was because of my willfulness that it indirectly caused Duanmukei's car accident. I lowered my head and covered my eyes. Tears flowed through the gaps between my fingers. Yu Xian gently patted my shoulder and said, "The only person I care about in my heart is Duanmu Quebec. Everyone else is the same in my heart. So please forgive me for telling you the truth. This is a small punishment for you." Yu Xian stood up, turned around and left the ward. At this time, Xingyao came in from outside. She and Yu Xian came face to face. The two of them didn't say anything. Xingyao looked at Yu Xian's back as she left. She walked to my side and said, "Sister-in-law, why did she come?" "Sister-in-law, what happened? Why are you crying?" Xingyao hugged me. I leaned on her shoulder and sobbed. I grabbed her arm and said, "Xingyao, it's me. I caused your brother to be hit by a car." I leaned on her shoulder and cried myself hoarse. "What the hell is going on? Sister-in-law, don't cry. Tell me everything." Xingyao stroked my head and softly comforted me. I told her everything that Yu Xian had just told me. After listening, Xingyao was very angry. She stood up and pulled my hand. "Sister-in-law, don't listen to her nonsense. She's just trying to scare you. How could you harm my brother? She must have thought of an excuse to break you and my brother up. Don't believe her, okay? That's her plan." I shook my head and said, "That's impossible. What she said makes a lot of sense. It's definitely like this. I caused Duanmukei to be like this. Xingyao, you don't have to say anything for me. You don't have to help me hide it. It's my fault. But I really didn't do it on purpose. I didn't think that something like this would happen." Xingyao hugged me tightly and said, "Sister-in-law, you have to believe me. Don't take things too hard. Don't do anything stupid. You have to believe me. Wait for me." I'll call Han Hao right now and tell him to come over. Don't be impulsive. While hugging me, Xin Yao dialed Han Hao's number. Han Hao, hurry up and come over. Xian just came over and said something to my sister-in-law. My sister-in-law immediately collapsed. Now she's saying that she caused my brother's accident. Hurry up and come take a look. With that, Xin Yao hung up the phone. She stroked my hair and said, Sister-in-law, don't worry. Han Hao will be here soon. My mind was filled with the thought that I had harmed Duanmu Quebec. My heart collapsed. Looking at Duanmu K lying in the ICU, my heart was filled with guilt. My tears couldn't stop flowing. At that moment, several uniformed police officers walked over to us. They stopped in front of me and Xin Yao and took out their police badges. Looking at me, they asked, Excuse me, are you Cold Glaze? I am. What can I do for you? I looked at them and suddenly felt uneasy. Chapter 81. One of the police officers walked up to me and looked at me. We suspect that you're involved in a case of intentional assault. Please come with us for an investigation. Then 2 police officers walked up to me and prepared to take me away. Xian Yao hugged me tightly and shouted at them, Impossible. Don't arrest people. My sister-in-law isn't that kind of person. Please don't interfere with our work. One of the police officers shouted at Xian Yao. Xian Yao didn't let go of me. She looked at the police officers and said, I'm the eldest daughter of the Duanmu family. You think you can do anything to me? It seemed that Xin Yao had used her identity to intimidate them. It was effective. The policemen looked at each other, then stood there and looked at us. At this time, one of them, who I guess was the person in charge, flipped through a notebook he'd brought with him. He looked at me and said, Cold Glaze, right? What's your relationship with Duanmu K? I was stunned. I looked at him and said, I'm his wife. Then it's you. Someone reported that you're involved in Duanmu K's car accident. There's evidence that before his car accident, the 2 of you had a fierce quarrel. That's why you set him up and murdered him, the police officer said calmly. I was dumbfounded. I fell into a chair and stared blankly in front of me. Xian Yao was scared. She hugged me and tears almost flowed out of her eyes. She looked at the police officer and said, Who said that? My sister-in-law and my brother were very loving. They only had a little conflict. What evidence do you have to say that my sister-in-law did it? The police officer sneered and looked at Xian Yao. You just said that there was a little conflict. That can be considered a motive. So, please cooperate with us, Miss Duanmu. We're just taking Miss Lung back for an investigation. If there's enough evidence to prove that Miss Lung has nothing to do with this, we'll immediately release her. Hearing him say this, Xin Yao was still very worried. She didn't let go. At this time, Han Hao walked to her side, pulled Xin Yao's arm and said, Xin Yao, listen to me. The police won't make things difficult for Xiaoli. You don't have to worry. The main task now is to tell Uncle and Auntie about this matter. Then everyone will discuss what to do. Listen to me, trust the police. Xian Yao turned to look at Han Hao and let go of me. I stood up and looked at Xian Yao. Girl, I'll leave Xiaokei to you. Promise me that no matter what happens, you'll listen to Han Hao. I turned to look at Han Hao. Han Hao, you have to take good care of Xian Yao. If Xiaokei wakes up, please tell me as soon as possible. I'll also have to trouble you to help me tell my parents. Try to be tactful. I'm afraid they won't be able to take this blow. After making the arrangements, I walked in front of the police officer. I can go with you now, I said, extending my hands in front of him. He looked at me and smiled. Miss Lung, there's no need. You can just come with us. I nodded and followed him out of the hospital. I passed by the glass window outside Duanmu K's room. I looked at him lying there and prayed in my heart that he would wake up soon. It wasn't to prove my innocence, but to see him when he woke up. After leaving the hospital, I got into the police car. I didn't say anything along the way. My heart had calmed down. I gradually understood the true meaning behind what Xian had said to me. Whether or not Duanmu K's car accident was caused by someone or not, Xian would use it as a pretext to make a fuss. She would frame me and say that I was the one who designed the accident. She said that to me just to make me panic. But after thinking it through, I was also taken to the police station, which was probably the result she wanted. When we arrived at the entrance of the police station, I got out of the car and followed them into the interrogation room. I naturally sat on a stool. The leading police officer and the other police officer sat across from me. He flipped through the information he had brought in and looked at me for a long time. I sat there calmly and looked back at him. After a while, he looked at me and said, "The daughter of Red Minghue's chairman Lung, the daughter-in-law of Kurosawa's chairman Duanmu, and the wife of Black Lotus Group's general manager Duanmu. Your identity is quite valuable." I sneered and looked at him. "This shouldn't have much to do with the case you're investigating." "It doesn't have much to do with it, but we still need to have basic information." "It's okay, I understand. If there's anything you need to know, you can ask me directly. After all, the information you have might not be the most accurate." I leaned back in the chair and looked at him. It seems that Miss Lung was prepared. Could it be that Duanmu-K's car accident was really related to you? He raised his eyebrows. I knew he was trying to get information from me. I looked at him and said, "If I wasn't calm enough and didn't make the first move, I would have easily fallen into your usual trap." The police officer suddenly laughed. He stood up and looked at me. "That's all for now. You take a rest first. We'll come back later." The police officer next to him was stunned. He stood up and looked at him. "Deputy Commissioner, didn't you say you wanted to finish the interrogation today? Shut up. I have the final say in this matter. Don't interrogate me first." The police officer looked very angry and scolded the police officer next to him. The police officer who was scolded suddenly stopped talking. He simply organized the documents on the table and followed him out. Seeing their strange behavior, my brows furrowed. Could it be that they were in cahoots with the people who wanted to frame me? It seemed that they were going to finish interrogating me today. But why did they suddenly stop? I looked at my watch. It was already late at night. It was probably too late. Forget it, I didn't want to think about it. When the sun rises, my parents will know about this matter and come to see me. After a while, another policeman came into the room. He helped me up and took me to the detention room. Although I didn't want to do it, I didn't have time to think about it. I just had to wait until the sun rose. The police station wasn't big. There were only 2 detention rooms. The middle was surrounded by iron bars. The police officer took me to one of the detention rooms. As soon as I sat down on the chair, I saw a person lying on the bench next to the detention room. His face was covered by a hat. He was very thin, but from his clothes he should be a man. The police officer who brought me in saw me enter and locked the iron bars of the detention room. He stood at the door and looked at me. "Miss Lung, I'm sorry. I'll have to trouble you tonight. I'll bring you a quilt later. Just now, Red Minghui Bai called and told us not to neglect you." Chapter 82. It turned out Uncle Bai had called the police. I took a few steps forward and looked at him. Did Uncle Bai say anything else? The policeman thought for a moment and said, "Master Bai told me to pass a message to you. He told you to rest well and not to think too much about other things. It will be resolved tomorrow." I nodded, understanding Uncle Bai's meaning. It seemed that the family had already started to take care of me. I took out 200 yuan from my pocket and gave it to the policeman. "Thank you for passing the message. I don't have much cash on me. Although it's not much, take it." He looked at me and said, "Miss Lung, I can't take this money. This is what I should do. I can't take your money." I grabbed his clothes and stuffed the money into his pocket. I looked at him and said, "Just take it that I bought the message from you. You can leave." I pushed him away. He looked at me and nodded helplessly. "Thank you, Miss Lung." Then he turned and left. I walked to the bench and sat down. Although it was summer, the night was still cold. I curled up into a ball as I waited for the quilt. "Can I report a policeman for taking bribes?" A man's voice came from the detention room next door. I glanced over and guessed that it was the man lying down. The man sat up and took off the hat covering his face. He looked at me and said, "Miss Lung." I stood across from him and looked at him carefully. He was quite handsome. His face wasn't very mature, but it had a trace of coldness. Although his clothes were old, they were very clean. He didn't look like a bad person. Miss Lung, why are you staring at me like that? Have you fallen in love with me? He stood up and took 2 steps forward, getting closer to me. If you dare to tell anyone about what happened just now, I can't guarantee what I will do to you. I didn't like the way he flirted with girls. I stood there and looked at him, giving him a warning. He laughed and looked at me as he laughed. Are you angry? I was just joking with you. Is it necessary? Besides, if I really did say it, who do you think would believe me? Listening to him, I sighed in my heart. It was true. What evidence did he have to report me? I glared at him and sat down on the bench. He was standing near the railing, very close to me. He looked at me and said, Eldest Miss Lung, did you come to the police station to observe the people's situation? This is not fun. Fortunately, it's just me tonight. If there were more people, you wouldn't even be enough for them to share. Are you a regular here? Also, how do you know me? I looked at him and asked, Miss Lung, you're so famous. How could I not know you? Besides, I was once taken care of by the Red Minghui, so I know a little about you. Also, I'm not a regular here. I just arrived today. Why do I feel like you know this place so well? I asked, looking at him. His expression suddenly became very sad. He gripped the railing and said thoughtfully, Because my father used to come in. Oh, I'm sorry. Looking at his sad expression, I had an indescribable feeling. He sneered. What's there to be embarrassed about? It's been a long time. I looked at him and asked, Then how did you get in? He sighed and said, My father was sentenced to prison for robbery and assault. My mother passed away when I was very young, and I had a sickly sister. When my father got into trouble, our family had no income. My sister needed to see a doctor and take care of her. I had no choice but to drop out of school to take care of her. Later, we sold our house, but we didn't have enough money. My education was low, so I couldn't earn much money. I couldn't take care of my sister because of the time conflict, so I had to live like this for a long time, starving in full. Until yesterday, my sister was so sick that she needed an operation urgently, but I didn't even have the money to buy the medicine. I had no choice but to steal it. But as soon as I put my hand into that woman's bag, she caught me and sent me here. Listening to his story, I didn't feel good. I didn't know how to comfort him, so I looked at him and said, Everything has a solution. Don't worry. He smiled and said, If I were alone, I'd be fine. But I'm worried about my sister. She's in the hospital right now. The doctor said that if I don't pay the hospital bill by noon tomorrow, my sister's medication will be stopped. Without the medication, my sister will die. Sigh, I really regret trying to steal that woman's purse. If I had stolen it, my sister might have been able to live. But I didn't, and I'm still locked up here. I feel so wronged. I feel really wronged. I sighed and looked at him. How about this? Tell me the address of the hospital your sister is in. If I can get out of here tomorrow, I'll go and pay for your sister's medical bills. If I can't get out, I'll ask Uncle Bai or my parents to do it for me. He looked at me excitedly and said, Really? But why are you helping me? I don't know why. Just think of it as me trying to shut your mouth. But that's too much. What do you need me to do for you? Anything. He looked at me with a sincere expression. I smiled and looked at him. Silly. If I asked you to kill someone, would you do it? Don't be so silly. He thought for a moment, then looked at me. Okay. Just think of it as me owing you. When I have money, I'll pay you back. Please believe me. I nodded and looked at him. I still don't know your name. My name is Suri. He extended his hand in front of me and looked at me. Miss Lung, thank you. Thank you for helping me. I reached out and shook his hand. It's nothing. You said that Red Minghui helped you before, so it's okay for me to help you again. No matter what, I still want to thank you. If you need me in the future, just let me know. I'll do my best, Suri said to me firmly. I nodded at him. After chatting with him for a while, I realized that Su Rue was a very lively and meticulous person. He cared about his younger sister and his father the most. Although his father was in prison for doing something wrong, Su Rue was still willing to forgive him and wait for him to come back. Chapter 83. Suri and I talked all night. He told me a lot of stories about himself, and how he had received help from the Red Minghui when he was in trouble. When it was very late, the young policeman came over to give me a quilt. I asked him for another quilt and handed it to Suri. Suri was very touched and had a good conversation with Suri. It was as if he regretted not having met sooner. I took a nap. After about an hour, it was morning. The young policeman was very attentive. He even prepared breakfast for me and Suri. After breakfast, I waited in the detention room for my family to come and pick me up. After waiting for a while, the young policeman came in front of me. He looked at me and said, "Miss Lung, Uncle Bai brought a few people to pick you up. Because there is insufficient evidence, and you have a sufficient alibi, you have been eliminated as a suspect." I smiled at him and said, "Thank you." I turned to look at Su Rue and said, "Little Su Rue, I'll definitely do what I promised you. I'll go and arrange for your sister's surgery now. I'll take care of all the expenses, so you don't have to worry." Suri looked at me with an excited expression and said, "Really? Thank you so much, Miss Lung. I didn't expect you to be so kind." I looked at him and smiled. "Just call me Xiaoli in the future. When I'm done with your sister, I will come and get you out." "Really?" Suri's eyes flashed with tears. "Don't worry. I will do what I say." I waved at him and followed the young policeman out. When I arrived at the reception room, I saw my father and mother sitting in chairs. Behind them stood Uncle Bai, Han Hao and Xin Yao. I sat opposite my parents, and the very authoritative police officer who interrogated me yesterday sat next to us. He looked at my parents and said, "Mr. Lung, after a night of investigation, it has been verified that your daughter indeed has a sufficient alibi and has nothing to do with the car accident in Douanmu, Quebec. You can take Miss Lung and leave." The father looked up at him and said, "I already know about this. What I want to know now is whether my son-in-law's car accident was caused by someone or an accident." The policeman was stunned. He looked at my father and said, "Well, we are still investigating. When the investigation is clear, I will inform you, Mr. Lung." My father stood up, and before he left, he looked at him and said, "You'd better let me know that you didn't intentionally arrest the wrong person. Otherwise, I'll destroy the entire police station. Li'er, let's go home." Everyone walked towards the door. I suddenly remembered something. I grabbed Uncle Bai's arm and looked at him. "Uncle Bai, a good friend of mine, is locked up here. He wanted to pay for his sister's medical fees, so he tried to steal, but he failed. He was arrested and treated as a thief and brought here. Uncle Bai, can you see if you can bail him out?" Uncle Bai thought for a moment and nodded. "No problem. That's easy to handle." "That's great. I'm going to the hospital to pay for his sister's medical expenses. Please, Uncle Bai." I looked at Uncle Bai with a smile. "Don't trouble yourself with paying for the medical expenses. Leave it to me. You go home and have a good talk with your brother and sister-in-law. Leave the matter of the person you mentioned to me. Don't worry, your Uncle Bai is not at ease." Uncle Bai patted my shoulder. "Of course I'm at ease. Once you've arranged for him to meet his sister, please bring him to see me." "Thank you." I smiled at Uncle Bai and followed him out of the police station. I followed my parents' car back home. Han Hao and Xin Yao also followed me back to my house. When we entered the living room, everyone sat on the sofa. Uncle Bai said a few words to my father, and then left. I looked at Xin Yao and asked, "Little girl, how's Douanmu K?" Xin Yao looked at me. "Sister-in-law, you don't need to worry. My brother has passed the critical stage, but he hasn't woken up yet. The doctor gave him a thorough examination and said that there's nothing wrong with him. He should wake up soon." I let out a long sigh. "That's good. I'm relieved. You should tell me about yourself first." My father glanced at me. At first I was bewildered. Then, I looked at my father and told him everything that had happened. My father angrily slapped the armrest of the sofa. He looked at me and said, "Why didn't you tell me about such a serious matter earlier? Besides, you knew that he was framed by that woman. Why didn't you believe him? Why did you want to aggravate the conflict?" Hearing my father say that, I couldn't stop my tears from flowing down. "Uncle Lung, you can't talk about sister-in-law. Sister-in-law didn't do anything wrong. It's all that woman's fault. No woman would want their man to have an ambiguous relationship with another woman. Xinyao looked at my father and said in front of me. My mother looked at my father and said, I think what Xinyao said is very reasonable. You shouldn't talk about our Li-er about this matter. My father looked at my mother, then looked at me and said, Li-er, I'm not talking about you. I've told you more than once. Your marriage is not up to you. Your marriage is closely related to the business relationship between your two families. It's not up to you to do whatever you want. Do you think it's child's play? I looked at my father and sighed. Dad, I know. I also said that I love Duanmu, Quebec. I don't want to argue with him. I also know that our marriage is closely related to our two families' finances. I also know what to do. When he wakes up, I'll apologize to him. Dad, don't be angry, okay? My father looked at me and nodded. Then he pulled my mother upstairs. I sat on the sofa and looked at Xinyao. Girl, thank you for speaking up for me. Xinyao sat next to me and leaned on my shoulder. Sister-in-law, you don't have to be so polite with me. I'll protect your relationship with my brother. I definitely won't allow you Xian to get involved. I sighed and said, I don't know why, but I don't feel confident right now. I'm also afraid that Duanmu won't forgive me. Sister-in-law, don't say that. You still have us. We'll support you. Oh right. Sister-in-law, you don't know, but not long after you were taken away yesterday, Yu Xian came back. She stayed in the hospital until Han Hao and I came out this morning. She didn't leave. I guess she's still in the hospital. It seems she's more attentive than I am. I lowered my head and covered my face. Sister-in-law, don't say that. The time is just right. Why don't we go to the hospital to see my brother? Xinyao pulled me to my feet. I looked at Han Hao and said, Han Hao, thank you for taking care of Xinyao and doing so many things for me. It's my duty. Han Hao looked at me and nodded. Chapter 84. Xinyao and I took Han Hao's car to the hospital. On the way, Han Hao told me how he had contacted Uncle Bai and helped me find the evidence. It turned out that they had contacted the driver, who was at the scene, and proved that he had caused the accident because he was tired and driving. It had nothing to do with me. Only the Red Minghui and the Kurosawa had the ability to find evidence in such a short time. As we talked, we arrived at the hospital. I couldn't wait to rush to Duanmu room. I wondered how he was recovering tonight. As soon as I entered the room, I saw Duanmu Tachio, Xiaofingya, and Yu Xian in the room. Duanmu was lying on the bed with his eyes closed. Looking at his sleeping appearance, I felt very uncomfortable. Xiaofingya turned her head and saw me standing at the door. She walked over to me and held my hand tightly. Xiaoli, I heard from Xinyao. You've been wronged. I don't know who called the police, but the driver who caused the accident had already arranged for the insurance company to settle the claim. He still called the police and said that you framed him. This is too much. I smiled bitterly and looked at her. Mom, it's okay. It's not a problem. My dad has already helped me solve it. There's no problem. Don't worry. I'm sorry for making you and Dad worry. Xiaofingya stroked my hair and said, Silly child, you've been wronged. I only found out this morning. If it weren't for Xinyao, I wouldn't have known. You guys are the same. You didn't tell me at first. Your dad and I can think of a way. No matter what, we can't let you stay in the police station for an entire night for no reason. Mom, it's okay. It's good to stay overnight. We found sufficient evidence to prove my innocence. This also saves me the trouble of going to the police station. It's good. This matter is over. You and Dad shouldn't think too much about it. I turned to look at Duanmu and asked, Mom, how's Xiao? The doctor just came to check on him this morning. He's out of danger, but he hasn't woken up yet. When he wakes up, he'll have to do a thorough examination. That's good. Sigh, it's all my fault. If only I wasn't so willful, I said with a sigh. Xiaofingya took my hand and said, I've already heard what happened from Xinyao. It's obviously not your fault, so don't think too much about it. K'er is still not mature enough. If he was mature, he wouldn't not know that he should let you have your way. I was stunned. I looked at her and said, That's normal. We're just getting used to each other. It'll be fine after a while. At this moment, I received a message. I turned on my phone and saw that it was from Xinyao. I looked up at her. I didn't understand why she would send me a message when she was so close to me. She pointed at her phone and gestured for me to see the message. I unlocked my phone and read it. It said, I cleverly avoided the topic of you Xian. I remember you and my brother said that you didn't have enough evidence to accuse you Xian of everything. That's why I didn't tell Mom. I thought to myself that this little girl was more reliable. I looked up at her. She winked at me mischievously. Then she pulled Han Hao out of the room. Xiao Fengya and I chatted casually. She asked me about what happened last night. I told her the truth. At this moment, Yu Xian walked in front of me and Xiao Fengya. She looked at Xiao Fengya and said, Auntie, I see that Duanmu Gij is fine. Everyone is here. I'll go back and rest. I'll come back tonight to keep an eye on things. I looked at her and said, It's fine. I'll be here. Go back and rest. Yu Xian looked at me, and then at Xiao Fengya. Auntie, if there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Goodbye. Then she said goodbye to Duanmu Tachio and Xiao Fengya and left the room. I looked at Yu Xian's back and said to Xiao Fengya, Mom, you and Dad stay here. I'm going to see her out. Xiao Fengya nodded at me. I walked out of the room. I saw Yu Xian's figure the moment I walked out of the ward. I quickened my pace and caught up with her. As I followed behind her, I looked at her back and said, Why are you in such a hurry? You probably didn't expect me to come back so soon. Yu Xian didn't say anything. I followed her to a resting area at the back of the hospital. She stopped and looked at me. I really didn't expect you to come out so soon. Moreover, I didn't expect you to get to the hospital so soon. But it doesn't matter. What do you mean by that? I looked at her and asked. Yu Xian smiled and looked at me. Yesterday, I spent the whole night with him. Although I couldn't enter the ICU, I was able to see him through the glass window. I felt very happy. You don't need to say that. I know you like him. You really put in a lot of effort to get him. I only have one question for you. I clenched my fists and looked at her. You want to ask me if Duanmu K's car accident was intentionally caused by me? Yu Xian raised her head and looked at me arrogantly. It's good that you know. Tell me the truth. Did you intentionally cause Duanmu K's car to crash into him? Yu Xian sneered and looked at me. Your imagination is really wild. I really don't like how Duanmu Gij treats you too well. I hate you. But no matter what, I wouldn't scheme to hurt Duanmu Gij. He's the only person I cherish. He's the only one I can't lose. Xinyao is still hiding things for you in front of Mom and Dad. Aren't you afraid that we'll tell Mom and Dad the truth? If they really know, do you think you'll have a good ending? I took a step forward and looked into her eyes. Yu Xian looked at me and said, It doesn't matter. Uncle Duanmu didn't trust me from the beginning. Whether I lied to him or not, the result would be the same. As for Auntie Xiao, you don't have to worry. She's the same as you, a soft-hearted person. She treats me so well. How could she bear to hurt me? Am I right? Listening to Yu Xian's words, there was a clear provocation in her tone. Since you know that she treats you so well, why do you still want to mess up our lives? No, if you didn't appear, I guarantee that Duanmu Gij would definitely fall in love with me. It's all because of you. Right now I don't have anything. Instead, Uncle Duanmu wants to use me as a bargaining chip in Kurosawa's transactions. Why? I'm also a human. Why do you treat me like a dog? Yu Xian pointed at my nose and asked. Chapter 85. Sighing, I looked at Yu Xian and said, You're thinking too much. No one treats you like a dog. You just didn't see it when everyone was nice to you in the beginning. Yu Xian turned around and said, Forget it. Things have developed to this point, and I don't feel like I've lost anything. You don't need to be too proud. If Duanmu K doesn't wake up, you'll feel guilty for the rest of your life. Then, Yu Xian turned around and left the hospital. I stood there and watched her leave, feeling very uncomfortable. I returned to the ward. Only Xiao Fengya was there, taking care of Duanmu Quebec Xinyao, and Han Hao had already left. I gently closed the door and walked behind Xiao Fengya. I patted her shoulder and said, Mom, you've been here for a long time. You should go back and rest. Xiaofengya turned around and looked at me. All right, I'll go back first. I'll leave the hospital to you. I helped Xiaofengya up and walked her out of the ward. I watched her get into the car before returning to the ward. Only Duan Muke and I were left in the ward. I sat next to Duan Muke and held his hand. I looked at his closed eyes, which were filled with tears. I gently stroked Duan Muke's face and kissed him on the lips. I sat on the chair next to his bed and watched him fall into deep thought. Xiaoke, wake up. I've already realized my mistake. I pressed my face against Duan Muke's palm. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I looked at him and said, Do you know how sad I was when you got into a car accident? I didn't feel anything when I was wronged. But when I saw your life hanging by a thread in the emergency room, I broke down. I will never misunderstand you and you Xian again. I know you love me. I will never do that again. Please believe me, okay? So wake up. I have a lot of things to tell you. I lay next to Duan Muke and couldn't stop my tears from flowing down. Just as I was heartbroken, the door to the ward was pushed open and a person walked in. It turned out to be Uncle Bai. Uncle Bai glanced at Duan Muke, then looked at me and said, Xiaoli, why are you crying? Don't be sad. He will wake up. I wiped my tears and looked at Uncle Bai. Uncle Bai, what did you want to see me for? Uncle Bai seemed to remember something. He looked at me and said, It's like this. I've already done what you asked me to do. He's outside the door. Who is he? He wants to see you. I had no choice but to bring him here. Okay, Uncle Bai, let him in. I said to Uncle Bai. Uncle Bai opened the door and a figure came in. It was none other than Suri. After he came in, Uncle Bai walked out of the ward and closed the door. Suri stood at the door and looked at Duan Muke lying on the bed. He then looked at me and said, Is he Duan Muke? I nodded. Miss Lung's husband is really different. He looks very handsome just lying there. Hearing the compliments coming from Suri's mouth, I suddenly felt very uncomfortable. I smiled coldly and looked at him. It's not very appropriate for you to say that. You should go back to being your normal self. Ha ha ha. You know me best. Speaking like that is really awkward. It's better to be casual. Suri rubbed his head and stood there with a silly smile on his face. Let's not talk about this. What do you want from me? I put down Duan Muke's hand and covered him with the blanket. Oh, it's like this. I came to thank you. Suri stopped smiling and looked at me. I really didn't expect you to keep your promise. Not only did you arrange for my sister's surgery, you also paid for all her medical bills. You also asked Uncle Bai to bail me out. Uncle Bai even agreed to let me work for him in the future. That way, I will have a fixed income to take care of my sister. I looked at him and said, Since I promised you, I must do it. You don't need to be polite with me. You can work for Uncle Bai. Since Uncle Bai said that he would personally take care of you, you will definitely have a good future. Uncle Bai has a good eye for people. You must not disappoint us. Su Rui nodded and said to me, That's a must. I will definitely work hard. If there's nothing else, you can go take care of your sister. I want to be alone. I looked at Duan Muke and gently stroked his face. Suri stood at the door and didn't move. He stared blankly at Duan Muke lying on the bed and didn't say anything. I saw that his behavior was a little strange. So I asked, Suri, what are you thinking about? Suri came back to his senses and pointed at Duan Muquebec. I think I just saw his finger move. What? I was very excited. I stood up and carefully looked at Duan Muke's finger. But it didn't move. I said to Suri, You might have seen wrong. That's impossible. My eyes are very good. Aya. He moved again. Suri pointed at Duan Muke and said excitedly. I quickly lowered my head and looked at Duan Muke's hands. Sure enough, the fingers on his left hand were trembling. I was so excited that I couldn't speak. Duan Muke could move. Is he going to wake up soon? I held Duan Muke's hand tightly and looked at his closed eyes. Xiaoke, are you awake? If you're awake, can you open your eyes? Duan Muke's right hand trembled again. I held his hand tightly and looked at his face. At this moment, Duan Muke's eyes slowly opened. I stood next to him and looked at him. I was very excited. I shouted, Xiaoke, you're awake? Someone come. Doctor. Where's the doctor? Suri also saw that Duan Muke was awake. He ran out of the room and asked the doctor and the nurse to come in. The doctor gave Duan Muke a simple examination and said, "It's good that you're awake. It looks like there's no problem now. We'll do a more detailed examination before you leave the hospital." Duan Muke was lying on the bed. He opened his eyes and looked around. I sat next to him and held his hand tightly. "Xiaoke, you're finally awake. That's great." At this moment, Duan Muke looked at me with a horrified expression. He pulled his hand out of my palm and clutched his own. "Who are you?" he asked me. "Don't mess around. I'm your wife. I'm sorry. I wronged you. Don't be angry, okay?" I didn't expect him to play such a childish game with me. I couldn't help but despise him. "Wife? I'm not married. How could I have a wife? Who the hell are you?" Duan Muke looked at me with a serious expression on his face. Chapter 86. It was as if he wanted to see through me. I slumped in the chair and looked at the defensive Duan Muke. Did he forget about me? "Xiaoke, I'm Xiaoli. Did you forget about me?" I grabbed Duan Muke's shoulder and shook him. Duan Muke struggled with all his might. He was very strong and pushed me to the ground. I lay on the ground and looked at him. He sat up and looked at me coldly. "Don't touch me. Hurry up and leave. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you." Suri had just walked in from outside. When he saw me on the ground, he quickly ran to my side and helped me up. He looked at me and said, "Miss Lung, why are you on the ground?" I got up and patted the dirt off my body. "It's nothing. Xiaoke accidentally pushed me. It's nothing." "What? Why did he push you?" Suri turned and looked at Duan Muke. "Duan Muke, what are you doing? What right do you have to push her?" Duan Muke looked at Suri from head to toe and said coldly, "Who are you? Forget it. It doesn't matter who you are. You know this woman, right? Hurry up and take her away. Tell her not to cause trouble here. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you too." "You." Suri was about to continue when I stopped him. I stood in front of him and motioned for him to stop talking. I looked at Suri and said, "Help me call the doctor. Also, tell the nurses to call Duanmu's family and tell them that Duan Muke woke up. I'll be here. Hurry up and go." Suri looked at me with a worried expression. "Are you okay by yourself? It's obvious that he doesn't know you." I shook my head and looked at him. "I'm fine. You should go." Suri reluctantly nodded and left the room. I stood in front of the bed and looked at Duan Muke. "You don't remember me at all?" Duan Muke looked at me blankly. "I don't remember, but I feel like I've seen you somewhere before. Can you think about it?" I leaned on the edge of the bed, looking at him expectantly. Duan Muke shook his head. "I don't want to think about it. Every time I think about something, my head feels like it's going to explode." My tears flowed down again. Duan Muke saw me standing there and crying. He said with a serious face, "Why are you crying? I just pushed you. What's wrong? Did he feel wronged? When my family comes, I'll have them pay you for it. Name your price." My heart ached again. I looked at Duan Muke and said, "I don't want money." Duan Muke sneered again. He looked at me and said, "You don't want money? What? You want me to marry you? We're already husband and wife. What's there to talk about? Oh, how come I don't remember being married? What? Do you really think I can marry you or something? Why don't you look in the mirror and see what kind of person you are? Even if you gave me something like you for free, I wouldn't want it." Hearing Duan Muke say those words, my heart ached. I clenched my fists and looked at Duan Muke. "No matter what, do you think you're doing the right thing by insulting a woman like this?" "I'm insulting you? Who knows whether or not you're trying to get close to me? I've seen a lot of women like you. If you can't get a man, you'll do everything you can to trick him into bed. Then you'll make that man take responsibility for you. How bad are you?" "Shut up." I couldn't bear it anymore. I put my hands on the edge of the bed and looked at Duan Muke fiercely. "What? You want to beat me up? Come on, do you think my family will forgive you?" Duan Muke stared at me with a hint of arrogance in his eyes. "You." Just as I was about to curse him, the door to the room was pushed open. A figure ran in. It was Xiaofengya. Xiao Fengya walked straight to Duanmukei's bedside. She touched his face and carefully looked at him. Duanmukei, you're awake? That's great. Thank goodness you're okay. If something happened to you, how would your father and I live? After saying that, she hugged Duanmukei tightly in her arms. Mom, what happened to me? Why am I in the hospital? I should be fine. Let's go home in a bit. Duanmukei looked at Xiao Fengya and said with a smile. What? You don't remember? Silly son. Let's wait a while and let the doctor check again. If there's really nothing wrong, then we'll go home. Xiaoli is also here, let's go together. Xiao Fengya turned around and looked at me with a bright smile. Xiaoli? Mom, how do you know that woman? Who is she? Duanmukei looked at me. His expression suddenly became very serious. Xiao Fengya cupped Duanmukei's face and said, What? Son, you don't know her? Don't scare Mom. What happened? Nothing happened. Who is this woman? Why do you all know her? Duanmukei looked at me angrily. Her name is Cold Glaze, she's your wife. Duanmugij, you finally woke up. A voice floated in from the door of the room. The person who opened the door was none other than Yuexan. Xinshin, long time no see. Where have you been? Last time, I promised to go shopping with you. Look at my memory, I forgot about it. Tomorrow, how about tomorrow? Duanmukei looked at Yuexan, and a smile appeared on his face. My heart was instantly petrified. Why does he only remember Yuexan but not me? Could it be that he had forgotten all the things that Yuexan had done before? Really? That's great. Duanmugij will go out to play when you're better. The doctor said that you need to rest for the next few days, so we can't move around. Yuexan changed her usual cold temperament and suddenly became like a cute girl. She acted like a spoiled child in front of Duanmu Quebec. Was this a dream? Why do I feel like the whole world has changed? I pinched my arm. It hurt a lot. Looks like it's not fake. If it's real, then it's even scarier. Duanmukei has already forgotten me. He definitely won't remember the time we spent together. What should I do? He will be kidnapped by Yuexan. What should I do? Son, you really don't remember? Li Er is your wife. When you two were together, you were very sweet and happy. What happened to you? How could you suddenly forget? Don't scare Mommy, okay? Xiao Fengya looked at Duanmukei, and her face was full of worry. At this time, Suri brought a doctor and a nurse to Duanmukei's room. The doctor did a simple examination of Duanmukei's situation, and then asked Duanmukei a few questions. Afterwards, he looked at us and said, According to observation, there is no external problem, but from the description, young Master Duanmu may be suffering from amnesia. We need to do a brain CT scan to know the result. Chapter 87. How did this happen? I asked the doctor as I looked at Duanmukei in disbelief. The doctor looked at me and said, His brain must have been hit during the car accident. Although he wasn't injured externally, he suffered internal damage and lost his memory. How long will it take for him to recover? I looked at Duanmukei helplessly. Miss Lung, don't worry. I'll arrange for a CT scan now. We can only confirm it after the results come out. Alright, then I'll leave it to you. The doctor left the room with the nurse. Not long after the doctor left, Duanmukei, Xiao Fengya, Exayan Yao, Han Hao, and Yuexayan all rushed into the room. They surrounded Duanmu Quebec. Xiao Fengya was so excited that tears streamed down her face. She looked at Duanmukei and said, You're finally awake. This is great. Mom, why are you crying? I'm fine, aren't I? Duanmukei turned around and saw Exayan Yao and Han Hao together. He asked in confusion, Exayan Yao, how come you're back? You're with Han Hao. You're not bad. I only have one precious little sister. You can't bully her. Otherwise, I won't be polite to you. Exayan Yao and Han Hao looked at each other. Then she looked at Duanmukei and said, Brother, did you forget that we're together? I didn't know. Really, why didn't you tell me? Exayan Yao felt that something was strange. She walked to my side and pulled me in front of Duanmu Quebec. She asked Duanmukei, Brother, do you know her? Duanmukei's expression changed instantly. He looked at me angrily and said, Why do you all say that I know her? I've already said that I don't know her at all. It's really strange. How do you all know her? Don't be rude. This is your legal wife. Duan Mutachio rebuked Duan Muquebec dad. I've already told you that I'm against arranged marriages. Moreover, I don't even like her. I will never marry her. Duan Muque said firmly to Duan Mutachio. Duan Mutachio said. Uncle, don't be angry. Let's let the doctor examine Duan Mugich first. Xian looked at Duan Muque and smiled. Xian, why do I feel like I haven't seen you for a long time? You seem to have lost weight. Did someone bully you? When I get home, I'll get even for you. Duan Muque looked at Xian and revealed a smile that hadn't appeared in a long time. Looking at the two of them, my heart felt like it was being stabbed by a needle. I looked at Duan Mutachio and Xiaofingya and said, Dad, Mom, I'm leaving first. Xiaofingya pulled my hand and said, Xiaoli, wait a moment. Don't go. She looked at Duan Muque and said, It doesn't matter if you remember or not. She is your wife. It doesn't matter if you admit it or not, we admit it. Mom, you better not force me. I already said that I won't marry someone I don't like. If you continue like this, I'll really leave. Duan Muque sat on the bed and looked at Xiaofingya and Duan Mutachio with a determined attitude. I patted Xiaofingya's shoulder and said, Mom, don't say any more. It's fine as long as he gets better. I don't care about anything else. You don't have to pretend to be kind. From the moment I saw you, I knew there was something wrong with you. You also don't have to brainwash my parents. It's useless. You better leave when I'm in a good mood. Duan Muque looked at me coldly. Xian stood next to him with a bright smile on her face. Okay, I'm leaving. I turned around and walked towards the door. At that moment, I couldn't control the tears in my eyes and they flowed down. Sister-in-law, don't go. Xingyao shouted behind me with all her might. I didn't stop and continued to walk forward. Xingyao, you can't chase after her. Duan Muque roared at Xingyao. Brother, you. Without waiting for Xingyao to finish speaking, Suri stood behind me. Suri looked at Xingyao and said, Since young Master Duan Muque told you not to chase after her, then please don't bother our family's Missy anymore. With that, Suri turned around and followed me out of the room. After leaving the room, I walked towards the green area behind the hospital. Suri followed closely behind me and didn't say anything. We walked to a place where there weren't many people. I casually found a stone bench and sat down. I raised my head and saw a large tree with lush foliage. Suri stood next to me. I could hear him sigh, but he didn't say anything. After a while, I didn't know what was going through my mind. When I thought about Duan Muque waking up, my heart was very excited. But when I thought about how he forgot about me, my heart felt like it was being torn apart. My tears flowed down once again. At this time, Suri handed me a tissue. I didn't raise my head. I took the tissue and wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes. Thank you, I said softly. Suri sighed again. You're too courteous. But you're completely different from the one I met yesterday. As I wiped my tears, I said to him, What's the difference? It's just me anyway. Do you feel better after crying? Suri squatted down and looked at me. Sorry, I don't know how to comfort girls. Suri scratched his head and looked at me with a silly smile. I looked at him and nodded. I suddenly felt that when other people were wronged, they had their loved ones by their side. But when I was wronged, it was because of a friend I'd just met. Suri stopped in front of me and looked at me. Missy Lung, I've decided to leave Uncle Bai. Hearing his words, my heart trembled. You're leaving? Where are you going? Suri stood up and looked at me. Please allow me to stay by your side and be your subordinate. I want to be your bodyguard. I raised my head and looked at him. What did you say? Suri, who was thin and weak, looked particularly tall under the sunlight. He looked at me and said, I don't know why, but when I saw him treat you like that, I felt an inexplicable anger in my heart. But I know that he's the one you love, and I can't hurt him, so I endured it. But when I saw you being wronged, I felt an urge to protect you. Do you think I'm being very childish? My tears flowed down again. I hadn't expected him to say that. Suri looked at me crying, and immediately panicked. He squatted down and looked at me. He took out a tissue from his pocket and gently wiped the tears on my face. I'm sorry, he said softly. Did I say something wrong to make you cry? I didn't do it on purpose. Please don't cry. I don't know what to do with you like this. As I wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes, I looked at him and said, No, it's just that no one has cared about me like this for a long time. I feel very touched. Thank you, Suri. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.